Notes here I've got, before the opening of the meeting, please can any members or officers in attendance with electronic devices mute it to avoid any feedback. To avoid to guests attending remotely via Teams, please could you keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak, and ideally not use your camera at all, as this can affect the quality of the IT connection. Please be advised that the meeting may be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. In addition, the recording may be added to the Council's website. If any councillors are accessing the meeting remotely, it is advised that you use your SWAL or KCC laptops to participate. If you join using a link on the website or on a mobile or tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Please can members speak loudly and clearly into their microphones and switch their microphones off after speaking to enable remote participants to hear the speaker. Next. Okay. Lovely job. Right. So I make that 7 o'clock. So we'll start the meeting. So good evening, members. Welcome to the Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee meeting on Wednesday the 12th of November 2025. It's very nice to see everybody, and very warm welcome to those of you that are joining online, as well as the members that are in the room this evening. In addition to the members of the committee, we have the following officers in attendance with us this evening. Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Cassell. Mid-Kent Environmental Health Manager, Duncan Haynes. Food and Safety Team Leader, Anne-Marie Goodwin. Team Leader, Environmental Protection, SWAL, Claire Lydon. Environmental Services Manager, Alistair Andrews. Environmental Contracts Manager, Kelly Merritt. Service Improvement and Project Manager, Andre Bowen. Green Spaces Manager, Graham Tuff. Democratic Services, Philippa Richards. Have I missed anybody out? Because that's quite a full list this evening. No? Okie dokie. Please be advised there is no fire drill this evening. If the alarms sound, those in attendance should leave via the nearest exits indicated and assemble outside where directed. Do not use the lift. If anybody in attendance requires extra assistance, please make yourself known so that we can assist. No? Okay then. Do we have any apologies for absence or substitutions this evening, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Alex Eyre, who is substituted by Councillor Charles Gibson, from Councillor Claire Martin, who is substituted by Councillor Hannah Perkin, from Councillor Ashley Shield, who is substituted by Councillor Angela Howson, and from Councillor Pete Neal, who is substituted by Councillor Lloyd Bowen. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Absence. Let's move on to the minutes. To approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of July 2025 as a correct record. Do we all agree? Lovely. Right, item number 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any members declaring any declarations of interest against any agenda item this evening? Councillor Jones?
Thank you. Obviously, some of the car parks are in Minster Parish, so I declare non-pecuniary interest in that. The Sea Cadets are also mentioned in the Barton's Point document, and I'm a trustee there, so that's non-pecuniary as well.
And I will join Councillor Jays in declaring my interest, as I also sit on Minster Parish Council. I'm assuming, Councillor Lundy, you'd like to do the same. Thank you. Nothing else? Sorry, Councillor Marchington, do apologise.
Thank you, Chair. I'll have to declare an interest, and I'm Town Council, according to Town Council, and the matters have already been discussed, so therefore I may have biased opinions. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody else, just to make sure? No? Right, let's move on to item number 5. Are there any matters arising? No, no matters arising. Number 6, Chair's briefing. So this is a new item for the agenda, which will be a standing item, and I think it's appearing on most of the service committees, or all of them, just to give you a little bit of an update as to what I've been doing on the committee's behalf in between the last meeting and this meeting. We've had some excellent input. You'll see this evening on the waste update that we've had some good news coming back from the waste contract in terms of the partnership with Suez and the education provider, and we've had 2 inputs. I attended an award giving for those participants, which was really, really rewarding, actually. And we've also been with the education provider to give them a little bit of input for a commercial video to give them the impetus to try and do this again. They are rolling out the same scheme or something very similar for Maidstone and Ashford in the coming months. So it's really nice to hear of some of those good news inputs that the bin contract that we were promised are coming forward, which is excellent. I also attended on behalf of the committee this week, I think it was this week, which was the first meeting that we've had for a while of the Kent members. Was it waste? Kent Environment Member Board. Sorry, I get confused with that. And that was a really great meeting in terms of lots of different councils coming together to discuss environmental concerns that affect everybody. Was disappointing that the cabinet member didn't make it for that particular meeting, but it was extremely well chaired by Councillor Simon Curry from Medway. And I look forward to seeing real tangible results from that committee about joined up things that affect all the councils in Kent going forward. And obviously that will be interesting to see how the work of that board navigates itself through local government reorganisation. But I think we're all looking at different things to see how that's going to fare as we go forward. So that's my chair's briefing. So item number 7 is the forward decision-making plan. Does anybody have any comments or Martin?
Yeah, just to say, since going to print, a couple of small changes on that. So at the meeting that you just referenced, the Kent Environment Members Board, they received a presentation of the draft Kent Joint Municipal Waste Strategy. We are proposing that we will put that on the January agenda for this committee to have a look at that joint waste management strategy. And then currently the forward plan shows the public toilet tender coming back in January. We actually think the tender's probably not going to be ready for January, so we may need to entertain either a February meeting or defer it to the March meeting. But we'll let you know as soon as we get the full time scales and get that updated on the forward plan with DEM services.
Lovely, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about the forward decision-making plan? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. On the Lid 2 Enforcement Service Review, I really think we need to get members' early input rather than get a document, as seems to happen on committee now, presented to us and we sign it off on the night with very little amendment, very little member input. I think it might be nice to have a task and finish group on that, whether it's just the one meeting, but we just get representatives from each group and make sure that we put out the best thought out document we can.
I would definitely support that. What is the best way we can make that happen?
Yeah, I can. We can certainly look at that. For those that were just at the previous briefing, it's Michelle Sampson, our Environmental Enforcement Manager, that's going to be leading that review. She's already had some initial meetings with those that provide those services within the industry. I think with Alistair as well, so come in if I'm saying anything wrong, Alistair. But yeah, absolutely, there's no reason that we couldn't have a one-off member group just to explain a little bit more around that and get some input before we do go out and test the market.
Brilliant. Is there anything we need to put in place at this meeting in terms of making that happen, or does that happen via email, or can it be done outside the meeting?
I would suggest you probably need a proposer and a seconder for that. Chair.
So, Councillor Jays, you happy to propose?
I am indeed.
And I'm definitely happy to second that. Members, are we all in favour of that? All in favour, if you could show your hands. Those against? Any abstentions? No, so that's fully in favour, so we can work on the details and then send that out to members. Lovely, thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, just to check, so for the purpose of the minutes, that's one member from each party to be on the task and finish group.
Yep, I think that's the normal way we do it, isn't it, really? So, yep, this is... Oh, apologies, Councillor Bone. Okay. Oh, fair enough. So, yep, so that's passed then, yeah? Lovely, okay, right. Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation, and please don't take this on telling people or teach people how to suck eggs on this at all, because it's not the intention. In terms of the forward plan, looking at, and Martin's just said about the January 1 May, in terms of the toilets may change, is to try and avoid groupings into the January meeting is looking already on here. I know it's just been released, looked already quite busy, and you've got lots of TBCs. What we don't want, I think we need to make sure that they're planned over a period of time, so we don't, we need to do them justice, and that we're not overloading ourselves in particular at certain meetings and having everything come together at the same time and then not much else afterwards.
I think that's a really good observation, because this meeting and the previous environmental meeting has been absolutely jam-packed with absolutely interesting and right things to talk about, but I very much take your point on that.
Yeah, and just to say from a workload point of view, we absolutely need that, Councillor, as well. A number of those sit within the same teams. So yeah, we absolutely need to spread that. Obviously, the open spaces strategy, we agreed at this committee we would wait until the outcome of the public inquiry. So we're a bit unsure about when we'll hear about that. So we'll start scheduling things as soon as we can. But from our point of view, both the stray dog and the litter enforcement review are looking to do the officer workload over the winter period when we're that little bit less hectic, so we'll be bringing them forward from March onwards, I would assume.
Lovely. Does that answer your question? Lovely job. Right, unless there's any more questions, we'll move on to item number 8, which is Mid-Kent Environmental Services Enforcement Policy. And you'll have to forgive me. Can you indicate which officer is presenting this, please? Thank you. Do apologise.
Thank you, Chair. This evening we're bringing you the updated Environmental Health Enforcement Policy for your approval. The updates are minor in nature to reflect minor changes in legislation. The reason for bringing it before the committee today is because the previous strategy was brought to the committee several years ago now, and we felt it would be appropriate to give members the opportunity to both review the policy and to approve, if you're in agreement, the updated policy. We'll be pleased to take any questions. Thank you.
Lovely. I'll just kick off by saying when I read through the policy, I was really pleased to see at the end of the policy there is links to where you can find a broadened aspect from the council's point of view on this policy. So thank you very much for that. Have we got any questions or comments from members on this item? Nope. This is a report to note or report to...
No, it's for approval.
Okay, well, I'm happy to propose. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Bowen. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Yep. Can anybody indicate if it's not unanimous, please, just in case I haven't seen you? No, definitely unanimous. Lovely, that's passed. Thank you very much. Just let the officers leave the room that are leaving, just because that's a bit of a disruption. Hang on. Okay, next agenda item is item number 9, a review of the council's free car parks. Could we have an introduction to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. So, councillors on this committee are asked to discuss 2 items tonight within this report. The first one is the consideration of adding charges to some of the currently free-to-use car parks across the borough, and also to consider the removal of the 30-minute parking tariff from all car parks. The removal of the 30-minute parking charge is part of a suite of measures being considered in the budget setting process. If agreed by the committee, it's estimated it will contribute somewhere in the region of an additional £150,000 per year. The second item in terms of the adding charges, a motion was taken to the council relating to transferring free car parks to towns and parishes. That motion was referred from full council to the relevant service committees. As asset transfers fall within the scope of the Economy and Property Committee, a report was discussed where it was agreed that there shouldn't be a full transfer of car parks without each individual case being discussed. And they also said that they needed to be looked individually so that best consideration could be made. Best consideration is a requirement under the Local Government Act, where before we dispose of an asset, a consideration has to be made around that asset. This ultimately means that assets that could support council operations should not be handed over without that consideration. The Economy and Property Committee therefore referred the matter of potential charging to this committee because this committee has the responsibility, overall responsibility for parking. This report and the appendix aims to provide some context to you as the committee on why some car parks are charged for and others are currently free. It sets out what the parking policy says about it. So if you recall, we have a parking policy, and so we need to frame our discussions within the elements of that parking policy. And it makes recommendations for discussion by the councillors. The appendix gives some basic context to each car park. It's not a complete picture. Clearly, you guys as ward councillors will know each of the car parks differently, but it aims just to set out a basic context to each of the car parks. Not all of the free car parks that are in that appendix have been proposed, and there you'll see the justification or the proposed justification for the ones that are put forward tonight between item 2.15 and 2.19. If all of the proposals were agreed tonight, or some of the proposals were agreed tonight, then a public consultation would need to be undertaken. That takes place as part of what's called the off-street parking order process. Posters would be installed in each of the affected car parks, and adverts would be taken out within local newspapers, and that asks for people to raise any comments or objections that they have through that process. That's a nationally recognised process for how we consult on these things. Any objections to that order would then need to be reconsidered, likely by this committee, again in the new year. At that point, any amendments to the order can be made, such as considering times, changing, for example, whether it's seasonality or whether they carry different tariffs. So those, based upon the feedback you get or the objections that you get, then we can debate different items. The estimate for the additional income for if all of the car parks were approved would be £35,000 for that year. Clearly, at the moment, we don't map the usage of those car parks, and we don't know how a change in charging structure would change that behaviour. So they are estimates at the moment, and from an officer point of view, we believe they are conservative. The one-off costs of the implementation, so putting signs up, installing machines, would be covered from something called the Civil Enforcement Parking Reserve. So when we issue penalty charge notices and when we get income from resident parking schemes, once we've subtracted all of our costs for operating the parking service off of that, if there's a surplus, it goes into a reserve. Over time, that reserve has built up. We recently utilised that reserve to replace all of our car parking machines, and there's some money left in that reserve for us to be able to cover the one-off costs without an impact on the base revenue budget. The report also mentions a few car parks that mainly serve resident parking. These are not proposed for the full-scale charging, but there is a paragraph in there that says it could be considered for resident parking to help recover the costs of maintaining them, should members wish. And happy to take any questions.
So before we start taking questions, actually, we do have two visiting members in, Councillor Tom Lundy from Minster.
Can I raise a
and
point of
Councillor
order
Whiting.
quickly, Chair, before we get into the actual debates?
Yes, of course.
Just to avoid going around in circles. On recommendation 3, removal of the 30-minute time limit, should this committee be in agreement later to agree that, should and have a minimum of the hour, under the Constitution, if that requires that we cannot enforce that if P&R and later full council do not also agree the budget and the fees and charges for next year. So I would suggest an amendment to that recommendation 3, just to add, should that be recommended by P&R and full council in due course, because otherwise we could be in a situation where we're saying we've scrapped 30 minutes, but the council says we keep 30 minutes, and then what do you do?
Yep, so I'm happy to take that as a recommendation amendment now, if that's okay with everybody, because that sounds absolutely correct, actually. So would you like to propose that recommendation?
Consider it proposed.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hunt, without me whacking my microphone, but Councillor Hunt, second. Can you show all in favour, please?
Sorry, Chair, can we just have it clear exactly what the word in the recommendation is?
So recommendation 3, the removal of the 30-minute tariff for all car parks from the 1st of April 2026 should all pending agreement by P&R and full council in due course.
So, sorry, can we just have it all in favour again, please? That's unanimous, I think. Can anybody show if they're against or any abstentions? Sorry, apologies, Councillor, there's one abstention, so not unanimous, in fact. Lovely, so that's carried. Right, so let's get back to the substantive. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this is obviously going to be a conversation this evening that this committee is having, and I'm sure we can do it in the most professional way possible, making sure that everybody's voice is heard where possible, bearing in mind that we do have a time limit for this evening's meeting. We do have visiting councillors with us, Councillor Whiting and Councillor Nundy. We're going to take the discussion in the room first, and we'll bring all councillors in at the end of the discussion. And I wanted to draw councillors' attention just quickly to paragraphs 2.1 and 2.4 respectively, that looks at the amount of free parking across the whole borough that is in effect, and also the wording of the motion that was passed by full council, that Swale Borough Council offer its free car parks across the borough to the relevant parish and town councils through the appropriate committee, and council procedures and council refers this issue to the relevant service committee for exploration and ultimately decision. And also for context and information, obviously this was heard by, a little bit of this was heard by Economy weeks ago, where they have obviously passed the relevant information over to us. I did extend an invitation to the Chair of Economy to attend this evening, but I think we all realise that all councillors are busy, and unfortunately she couldn't make it this evening. So that just needed to inform. So I will open it up to the room now for anybody that would like to have discussions or comments. Okey-dokey. Hang on 1 second. Apologies. Sorry, just for the purposes of the meeting, can I just take your name, please? Simon. Sorry, thank you. Thank you. That's obviously no use if I say things without the microphone being on, but thank you for that. Okay, so just for clarity, I don't have, and Democratic Services don't have a record of that, but on this occasion, we are absolutely more than happy to hear your representation. And if what we'll do is we'll take the discussion in the room first, then we'll take yourself for your representation, and then we'll go to visiting ward councillors after that on recommendation from officers. Thank you. So back to the room. So I'll just take a quick list. I've got Councillor Jays first.
Thank you, Chair. I don't wish to challenge you as Chair. We do seem to be doing this a bit topsy-turvy. When in all other meetings where we discuss parking, or in fact anything that was previously on the community committee, we'd hear from the ward councillors first. I think it's almost like planning. You hear from your residents, your ward councillors, and then the rest of us have our debate. There's almost no point us debating if then we get excellent points from them and then we're not allowed to speak again, or possibly not allowed to speak again. I wonder if we can do it that way around, but obviously you're the Chair, so it's your decision.
So we're also doing it the way for the entire meeting, so that actually what I can do is hear from ward councillors, because I feel that I want to hear the discussion between ward councillors first, if that makes sense, because they've got pertinent points to add, and then we can bring in people from outside the committee structure, which I think is the right thing to do on this occasion. But obviously, thank you very much for bringing that in, Councillor Jays. Has anybody got any questions or comments on the item from committee members, please? Okay, Councillor Jays.
Thank you. So we're back here again discussing these free car parks again. Okay, we've added a few more on just to make it look like we're spreading it across the borough. Standard tariffs at these locations is laughable. This is just money grabbing. I don't know how I can agree to send this out to consultation. It was laughable for the ship on shore to be charged at that rate, but that was just added on as part of fees and charges one day. So there was no discussion, no consultation. It was just, that's the rate it's going at. But I don't think we should go out to formal consultation. I don't think we should be discussing this without this going out to our informal council consultation, not the official off-street parking order consultation. I think we should be consulting our residents. That's what we were elected for, to listen to our residents. We've rejected this at Budget Council last year, and it's back again. We've had a motion to dispose of free car parks, and yet we're discussing this again. This is just trying to go around the motion again. Obviously, someone doesn't like the idea of passing on car parks to parish and town councils. In fact, my own parish council offered before the motion to take on the Little Oyster car park and other ones in Minster. So I don't think we've had a formal response from the property team yet to say what's happening with that. It's gone into the ether, and I'm sure we'll find out about it once we've dealt with this tonight. So we had a motion to transfer, and this is just circumnavigating it. In the breakdown, it mentions how many car parks are currently free. What it doesn't mention is how many are currently charged for in each area, so I think that's quite important. In Sittingbourne, we charge for 13 car parks. On Sheppey, we charge for 10, and in Faversham, we charge for 4. At the Little Oyster, there is plenty of free on-street car parking. People will just avoid the car park, as they do at the Ship on Shore. They'll just park outside, and we'll have a lovely car park sitting there empty, pointlessly. I mean, okay, it's probably good for the kids to play as they do at the Ship on Shore car park. It's basically a local skate park since the council demolished the local skate park. As I'm sure we all saw earlier, there was an email, which I'm sure Councillor Whiting's going to bring up, from the head teacher at the local school. This car park has been used for generations, including when I was a child at the local schools, for parents to drop off and pick up. So it's now we're almost targeting parents, and it'll just lead to poor parking in other locations. It's not great parking around there with this amount of car parking there. It's only going to make the situation worse. And please don't forget, item 3, as we've just heard, is about removing the 30-minute tariff. That's snuck in on this document, I'd say, because the title of this is the review of council free car parking. So if people have just skimmed and just seen the report's title, they may not have seen this recommendation 3 hidden on the bottom. I really want to hear from our ward councillors and I really want to hear from the public on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jace. Would you like to come back on any of those, Martin?
I think most of them were statements rather than questions. But on the Minster Parish Council offer to take a transfer, as I alluded to earlier, Economy and Property Committee debated that and took the decision that they wanted to look at the transfers in the whole and individually. So that's why you've not had the full response yet. The conversations with the parishes and the towns on a whole range of assets continue.
And can we just clarify, the transfer of assets is under the Economy Committee, isn't it? So I do take your point about raising that issue, but that's for Economy to decide. I'm hoping they again will look at this meeting to also provide context for any future decisions, but also encourage ward members to go along to their committee meetings to make sure that voice is heard there as well, because we want our towns and parishes to be treated fairly, I believe. Thank you. Also, if you are indicating to speak, can you raise your hand, because I'm obviously not picking up nods, winks, or any other sort of sly indications. Be really obvious, please. Thanks very much. Councillor Gibson, would you like to go next? Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing from the ward members and the residents, but just quick clarification. Does the off-street parking order consultation include consultation with towns and parish councils as part of that formal process?
It doesn't normally mean that we send a direct communication to them, but we would absolutely accept those. And if that's a question from this committee, more than happy to send an official note to all of the towns and parishes in order to make them aware.
I think given the relatively small number of parishes involved, that would probably be helpful. Thank you.
Sounds like a good way forward. Right, is there anybody else indicating? Councillor Bowen, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to just add at this point, I would welcome the opportunity, once we've heard from also the ward members and the member of the public, as a part of the decision-making aspect of this committee, should information then come to light, which actually I would like to question after that you'd indulge to be able to come back. So I agree, it could have been, whichever way you do it, it's not going to be perfect. But with that as a caveat, this is one of those subjects which a lot of people are going to be hacked off about, and I totally understand that. But we are here in this committee for Swale Borough Council. We are not here for particular areas, and as hard as that may seem, we are here as a borough to make borough-wide decisions. What is best for the borough? What is best for this entire council, rather than pockets of it? It is unfair to lots of people where we have this discrepancy where some areas pay, some areas don't, and we are still short in our budget. We have a duty to this council, we have a duty to the residents, but we can't provide that service if the council hasn't got any money or can't provide those services going forward. I don't think we should be seen to be almost like subsidising other groups when the responsibility for those rests in other places, in my view. And if there's an issue with parking in one area, that's not actually a borough council issue. Maybe it's KCC on how they actually should have planned it, and they should be doing something to address it. But I do understand and appreciate that it is a change that will not be popular if this is agreed going forward. But for a borough-wide perspective, which is what we are here for, please keep that in mind when we go further into this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Did you want to come back on anything? No. Okie dokie. So, Councillor Miller, I think you were next.
Thank you, Chair. The financial pressures on this council are very real and impact the vital services our community relies on. These services depend on stable and sustainable funding. As councillors, we must make responsible decisions that protect the council's long-term financial health while ensuring we can continue delivering for our residents. Though the proposal presents challenges, it is a necessary step to maintain that balance. It will provide important income to help sustain essential services, and for that reason it has my support.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Gibson and then Councillor Hunt. Thank you. Oh, I do apologise. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Firstly, I think it's a bad idea. As has already been said, I don't think these car parks are going to be used. You're sort of looking at this and thinking, oh, everyone's going to start parking in there and paying the money. They won't. They'll park on the roads around it, as has been seen on the Ship and Shore car park. However, from what's in the report and saying about how we need to look at things financially, and we can't just pass over car parks if there's ways of making money on it. So I do understand why this has come forward, and purely from a financial point of view, I think it is the right thing to be doing, and as has been said, is on fairness. But I do also then have a concern that it's been said about that the charges haven't been mapped. We don't know what actually the income is going to be here, again, because people will start parking elsewhere. So just a question, and once I've got the answer, if I can come back, if that's okay, is that how much are we looking at these car parks in recommendation 1 generating? Is there any idea at all?
Yeah, so the report estimates it at £35,000 for the year. If you use the Ship on Shore car park in the first full year of operation, that took just over £8,000. So on an equivalent type basis for these car parks, that's why we're saying 35,000 is fairly conservative. And we've done that because whenever you implement new charges in any area, people absolutely do vote with their feet to start with, and then obviously behaviour changes and people do start to use it, as has been shown with the Ship on Shore. So we absolutely for next year have put in 35,000 as that, but obviously if they were implemented after a full year, then that would help set future budgets and estimates for that, because we'd understand driver behaviour a bit more.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So that's good to know. It's also good to hear there that Ship and Shore after a year has taken 8,000. So when we're looking at these budgets, okay, we are having to be careful with finance and budgets, but was £8,000 income really worth it for that car park? We have to consider that. And I think what we need to do with this is, yes, go ahead with the recommendations that are here, but I would propose that in a year's time, when this has been running and in time for the next budget in the previous year, that a report comes back with exactly what income has been made on these car parks, so that can then be re-looked at and a decision made to see whether it is worth financially keeping that position, or if it is something that parish and town councils could be taking on, because that way we have then dealt with the Local Government Act under Section 123, made sure that we know exactly what finance we are getting, and whether there is a decision, if we do dispose of them, are we actually, is it something that we're doing wrong because we are getting a good income? If we don't know what the income is going to be, we can't really be making decisions on disposable. So that's my proposal, that this comes back in a year's time before that next budget, that we can then re-look at it.
Just quickly, before we do that, if that's okay, I'd just like a bit of clarification from the officer, because we seem to be attaching the Towns and Parish issue to this. I just want a bit of clarification about how that works, whether that's the right direction for the conversation to go in, if that makes sense. Thank you. publicly, just because I'm interested to know, because as far as my perception was, and I'm happy to discuss my perception with this committee, is that actually, even if whatever the decision is this evening, the decision for whether these assets are moved through the community asset transfer scheme via economy would still happen either way. So I just need clarity on that to make sure, because at the moment it feels a little bit like members feel that if it goes ahead with charging this evening, that conversation immediately stops. So I just need a bit of clarification on that for everybody. Thank you.
I mean, clearly we're talking in hypotheticals because no decisions have been made on that, and certainly property is not my area, so I'll refer back to the paragraph that talks about the section 123. So my understanding of that is before we can transfer that, we have to make these considerations. So I actually think Councillor Hunt's recommendation of reviewing it before you do any transfers is absolutely in line with that legislation. So it won't halt the conversations with towns and parishes over a range of assets, but clearly it would be a much better conversation, and we would be better able to prove best consideration when we've got more data on in terms of usage and income. This council may well, so when you're talking, and that's why we've Economy and Property Committee have talked about making decisions in the round, because actually we may be talking to towns and parishes about taking assets on that don't generate income, and therefore you can do a quid pro quo in terms of one that generally costs money could come with one that provides money in order to help those situations. So I absolutely think it's right. You know, sticking back to what Economy and Property decided was that each case needs to be looked at individually with the right type of data, and that's why they felt that they couldn't make that decision on the night in terms of a blanket transfer, because they didn't know what potential these particular assets had.
Okay, so going back to your change in the recommendation.
No, I think it was the right recommendation that they need that data for whatever happens.
Oh no, what I meant was, would you like to? Is it number one that you'd like to?
Oh, sorry,
Apologies.
Probably. I suppose the easiest way might be for us, but it'd be a recommendation, rather than altering that, a recommendation for
A recommendation.
that those car parks listed in 1A to F are brought back to committee at the right time with the financial details of income for those.
Happy to second that.
Thank you. So thank you for your patience, members. Just to confirm what Martin's just said to me is that obviously we can vote on that recommendation now, but it will, with agreement from the committee, only come into play if recommendation 1 is actually passed, rather than it standing as a standalone recommendation with no basis for it to be there. Are we all agreed to proceed with the vote on that basis, Councillor Jays?
Can I speak to the amendment?
You may speak to the amendment.
Okay, so hypothetically we agree, we'll review this in a year's time. So we spend over 40k sticking in at least 5 parking machines at these locations. We've just been told that the prediction is that we'll take 35k in. So if in a year's time we decide we're going to abandon this, not only £5,000 loss, but we've now got 5 parking machines kicking around in the car park, in the corner in the cupboard. As you're probably hearing, I'm not for this report. I'm not for this recommendation. I think, if anything, the proposal should have been to send this out to informal consultation with the public so we can hear them. But we heard their voice loud and clear last time when we had petitions brought before us.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Chair. I do recall when the best value legislation was brought in. We're very lucky that there's still bits on the back burner, but most of it is not here anymore. There's a bit like a CQC inspection We used to have best value inspections, and you'd have to put together this much to prove that you were getting best value for the stuff that you held. And then you were interviewed and God knows what else. So, and under the Act, if you want to dispose of your assets, you need to know what they're worth. There is bits in this report, and Councillor Hunt, thank you, because you give a bit more. You can't give away an asset unless you know what its worth is, and that's what I understood Economy and Property said. Well, we can't, they're your assets. You need to come up with a rationale of how to work out how much they're worth. And under best value, we could, I'm not suggesting, this is a figure out the air, by the way. What's the first one? Little Oyster. We could give away the Little Oyster, Minster-on-Sea, to Minster Parish Council. Gosh, they could make £1 million worth out of that. We could be taken to court on that because we've not taken into account best value. If we don't know what it's worth, we can't give it away, you see, in a nutshell. So I think the only way you can see what it's worth is to see what you can get for it in terms of a car park, because that's what the use is now. Could be, I don't know, looking at it, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 houses put on it. Even greater worth. So, I wish you'd have done a bit more explanation in the report in words of one syllable, because as I say, I was here, and I can tell you now, if we had an inspection today from those best value teams, we would get hammered for all these free car parks, all this money we could be making, and that was the sort of thing they hammered us for in those days. So I don't see that there's an issue in saying, well, you know, we wouldn't be averse to giving this, that and the other away to the parish councils if they want them, but we have to know their worth.
Do you want to come back on that? No, okie dokie. Thank you, Councillor Harrison. So, sorry, Councillor Perkin.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a sensible recommendation from Councillor Hunt. I guess I wanted to add a little bit more to Councillor Harrison's point, because I think it's absolutely correct. We do need to look at ways that we can make money for the council, but it's not just about making money for the council, it's about making money for our residents and our services. So I think it's really crucial to think of it in a, whenever the public get asked about car parking, a lot of it is we don't want to pay for car parking at all, which is absolutely fine. I don't want to pay for car parking particularly either. But I also want to be able to look after people who are homeless, and I also want to be able to make sure that we're able to provide SWEP in the winter so that people don't die on the streets. And I also want to be able to offer council tax reductions to people that need council tax reductions. So there's lots of really vulnerable people that are really heavily reliant on services which are under incredible strain at the moment and are likely to continue to be under incredible strain because local government is not funded appropriately to be able to look after the most vulnerable in our communities. If charging for car parking is really the only way of funding those really, really crucial services, then we should be charging for car parking. It's as simple as that, and it should be equitable across the borough. I'm hearing, yes, there's 4 car parks in Faversham that are charged, but the percentage of car parks that are charged in Faversham is actually fairly high. Like most places have chargeable car parks in and around Faversham. And we went through this, you will have heard me say it before, we went through this entire process of looking at what would be fair, what would be equitable, what kind of ground people would give up so that other people were comfortable with the decisions, and we looked at how that would best benefit our residents in the whole. Over the course of a year, we looked at that. We looked at all of the data. We pulled all kinds of information together. And at the very last moment in that committee, it was undermined. All of that trust with the residents and all of that trust between people who had worked really collectively to come up with a decision that was equitable and fair and considered the poorest in our community was undermined in that decision. And this opportunity that we have restores some of that but also puts the residents that most need us first, and that is really, really important. I hear arguments all the time from, you know, other people about, oh, well, the people will have to pay to go to the library, people have to pay to go to X, Y, and Z. Yeah, people in Faversham already have to pay to go to the library. The library car park is charged, the main car park is charged. Like, it should be equitable across the patch. If we're going to ask people to pay for car parking, everybody should pay for car parking equally across the borough, and then we can collect that money to be able to pay for the services that our residents need. And you know, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to ask people to pay for car parking. No one enjoys it. No one wants to ask for that. But we're in a position where it is that, or we don't provide services that our residents need, and that is really where we are with it.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. And just because we've gone a fair way, did you want to come back? We're going to go back to Councillor Hunt's recommendation. And Councillor Bowen, you'd like to your right to reply? Yep.
Yes, thank you. I reserve my right. And thank you to the speakers. Then, I mean, bring it back to the actual request in terms of the review. Totally support that, because I disagree in terms of we'll have 5 machines sitting out there. I'd rather have 5 machines and take them away rather than keep suffering year after year after loss, if that's what turns out to be the case. There is no point flogging a dead horse once it's dead, or continuing to flog it. But if the actual car parks, when we get the data and know what they're actually generating, if they are good for the council, you should keep that. But at the moment, we don't know. And the only way we're going to find out is to do this, in all honesty. And if this doesn't work, in 12 months' time, we'll bring it back and say, yeah, okay, we've now got the data, we've got the insights, we can see actually it's not cost effective, it's not getting best value for the council. Let's rethink. But for the now, I think that's the appropriate way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. And just really quickly, can we just confirm whether this phrase best value or best consideration, is that something we like to do? Is it something that's in legislation? Is it something that's in council rules that we should be looking at this through the lens of, or is that really?
Yeah, it's within legislation, section 123 of the Local Government Act, so it requires us to do it for any asset that we have.
I just wanted to confirm that just to make sure members had that information. So we'll go to the vote now for Councillor Hunt's recommendation. Just one more time, Councillor Hunt, if you can just go over the wording for me, please.
That recommendation 4 is added that the car parks in 1A to F comes back in a year's time with a review if recommendation 1 is agreed.
Thank you. So, sorry, Councillor Harrison.
When you say in a year's time through the chair, should it be a year after implementation?
Apologies, I did say a year, but it was at a time that is right to make sure that it's in that previous year's budget. So you're looking at round about a year's time from now to make sure that it's going to be in the 27, 28 budget, because that we just need enough time at the committee to be able to make that decision for that budget. So
does that make it clear, Councillor Harrison? Lovely. So if we can actually move to the vote now. So all in favour of Councillor Hunt's recommendation, please. I'm also in favour of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 in favour. Any against? Yep, 13 including me. Anybody against? Anybody against? Any abstentions? And 2 abstentions. Okay. So that has passed. Right, let's go back to the substantive. If we've got no other councillors that would like to talk at this moment, then let's bring in the member of the public, because they've been waiting a fairly long time. Thank you. What is the best way? Would you like to come forward to the middle so that we can hear you? And also, when you speak into the microphone, it means that people online can hear you, so it's quite useful for everybody. Thank you. So just to let you know, obviously it will be 3 minutes, and I'm sure you'll be given a warning when that 3 minutes is almost time. Okay, thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me come and speak. It's a feeling of deja vu because we're back here again. We did it a year ago. Your constituents all spoke. You listened, but again, we're back here again. In a short space of 7 days, we've got 200 signatures in Queenborough, and I think Mike's got another set of 100 and odd. So, people are still anti it. About funding it for a year and seeing what happens. What happens to the businesses in that year? How are you going to record the cost of all the businesses shutting? Because people aren't going to come. It's not like Faversham. We haven't got footfall and a visitor centre. We've only got one shop and a pub. We don't get vast amounts of people, and they're not going to come. And, there is be equitable. Faversham car parks, why are they charged less than Sheerness car park per hour? I don't understand that. We got the most deprived wards in the borough. One size doesn't fit all. Some areas are deprived. Faversham's got a lot more disposable income in their high street than the chap in Queenborough or Sheerness High Street. We talked so much last time about the social and economic impact, businesses. And we're struggling with the current regime on national insurance, rates, tax. This is just another nail in our coffin. And all right, you might make 8,000 in the car park, but we'll let 6 people go. The pub will let a load of people go. There'll be a lot more people on benefit. The community centre will shut that supplies free meals. They're volunteers. They're not going to go and volunteer there for the day if they can't park. Why should they? They're doing it for nothing. The Ship on Shore shown that. I can't believe it's got 8,000. I've never seen anyone in there. So unless it's a lot of fines or whatever. But again, one size doesn't fit all. We keep on, Councillor Bowen, we're here for the borough. You're here for the residents. The amount of money you've wasted on public inquiries for planning. I've been in council meetings before. Some councillors should be charged for negligence. They've spent hundreds of thousands on appeals. If we want to lead by example, Swale House, car park downstairs. Do your employees pay for that?
That's 30 seconds.
They should be paying as well. If you want our people to pay to go and work in the community centre for nothing, then the people who work here should pay for the car park downstairs. What's the difference? So I'm sorry, 3 minutes is not enough to go through all of it. I just think it's wrong. We've been there before. Halfway car park. There's nowhere else to park, and there's half a dozen little restaurants there. They're just all shut, and there'll be another lot of people out on which is short-sighted,
Okay.
I'm afraid.
That's your 3 minutes, but thank you very much for coming along this evening, and thank you for being an advocate for your community. Okay, so let's move on to our ward councillors. I'm going to ask Councillor Whiting to go first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move away from the asset transfer argument because, as we know, full council had already resolved to offer its free car parks to parish and town councils. So I think that whole line is a bit of a red herring, frankly. But thank you. I was astonished to see this come back just months after the council threw it out. It was a bad idea then, and it's a bad idea now. And I don't agree with Councillor Bowen. I don't think this is best. It cannot be, and it is not best for the borough. The car parks at Halfway Queenborough Library and Park Road Queenborough in my ward are well used by those using local shops, the library, health and charity services, such as those at Castle Connections. Customers who support a wide range of independent shops in Queenborough and Halfway rely on these car parks. The roads outside those shops have yellow lines or very limited parking, and to add a parking surcharge to hard-pressed customers and hard-pressed businesses is wrong, particularly during the ongoing cost of living crisis. The net result, following the introduction of charges at the Ship on Shore in Sheerness, has been a massive drop in the number of people parking there and a huge increase in dangerous on-street parking. We've heard last year Ship on Shore generated just over £8,000 in revenue. notwithstanding the huge recurring costs of resurfacing, relining, repairing barriers and everything else, and installing ticket machines at these car parks, the meagre revenue that we got, we have to, I'm told by officers, deduct around £2,000 in revenue costs of maintaining the car parking machines, emptying them, cash handling, etc., etc. And there's a cost also, admin costs, of any likely increase in the number of penalty charge appeals that we might receive. Officers have told me they're not proposing an increase in the enforcement hours we contract, meaning that we have to spread our enforcement more thinly, and that can only reduce enforcement elsewhere, including on our yellow lines and double yellow lines. Introducing charges to the car parks in my ward is not going to fill the council's budget gap or have any demonstrable impact on it. And then, Madam Chair, there's the unintended consequences of making bad decisions. We've mentioned Marine Parade in your ward with the parking outside the Ship on Shore car park. It's dramatically increased. And those cars have displaced by the car park charges introduced last year.
30 seconds.
Means there's no longer space for the police to park there and enforce, as they previously did, a key tool in fighting to reduce the appalling record of death and serious injury along that road. In my ward, we'll see narrow streets congested further by car parks on pavements rather than in the car park, and the head teacher makes his point very clear in the letter I circulated. I'm very grateful for the petition, and I've now got 328 names on the petition which I'll hand in.
Time,
if I could just
Councillor
finish
Whiting.
with 2 seconds,
Just really quickly,
Madam
last
Chair.
sentence.
These charges won't balance the council's books, but they will increase dangerous on-street parking, particularly around the primary school. They will put pressure on hard-pressed local businesses fighting for every customer. They will adversely affect the users of a wide range of charity, health and library services, and they will reduce enforcement in other car parks and on-street yellow lines. Madam Chair, I urge colleagues to vote against these damaging proposals as we did previously. Nothing has changed. Thank you, Madam.
Point of order, Chair.
Can I just thank Councillor Whiting?
Of course you can.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whiting, and very much like I said to the member of the public, thank you for coming along and advocating for your ward this evening. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Jones.
I was just wondering where the 3 minutes for visiting members to service committees comes from.
Oh, then maybe I can get advice from Democratic Services on that. So I've been told actually there's not a 3-minute recommendation in the Constitution, so I apologise, Councillor Whiting. Is there anything else that you would quickly like to add? Because you were given a time limit.
I will make only one other point, and it goes, and I wasn't going to talk about the asset transfer thing, but you don't just reduce budget gaps by increasing your income. Sensible people will reduce a budget gap by reducing their outgoings and actually reducing the cost of these car parks to the council by transferring to the parish and town councils, as was previously agreed by full council, may be the better way, certainly in my view, the better way of reducing the budget gap. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting, and that may be a good aspect to bring up at the next Economy Committee as well. Thank you. So, Councillor Archerton, I'm aware that you want to speak, but I'm just going to come back to Officer to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments back on the member of public conversation and Councillor Whiting's. So I think you made a statement around the charges being lower in different areas. At the moment, we charge a standard tariff across every car park. The parking policy does actually allow us to do differential parking charges, but as a whole at the moment. 1 hour of parking is exactly the same regardless of which car park it's in, unlike other boroughs. So the income element referenced on the Ship and Shore, just to confirm, that was not from PCNs, that's pure income from paying customers. Penalty charge notice income has to be dealt with differently. It goes into what I talked about earlier, which is the Civil Enforcement Fund calculation. On Councillor Whiting's, I think you've probably answered how I was going to respond in your last bullet point, but you talked about increasing costs of maintaining them. On every free car park, we have costs of maintaining them already. So they're already there if somebody drives into a barrier or a pothole goes in there. You know, they exist already, so there won't be additional costs. Apologies if I misread that. On the unintended consequences, of course, whenever you bring in a new scheme, there is displacement. What we often find that is time limited as different behaviours change. On the particular item of the Marine Parade where it's blocked the police, we did actually bring forward some measures to solve that at the Joint Transportation Board, but unfortunately because of the advice of KCC officers, I think those double yellow lines were thrown out by JTB. So where there is displacement, we can absolutely follow up from these decisions to control that those safety concerns.
Thank you for that. Councillor Nundy, if you'd like to not have 3 minutes and give us your visiting ward councillor. And I'm not going to blame Democratic Service. That is my fault for not knowing that rule. So I will endeavour to do better next time, members. Apologise.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Simon for coming over from the island to speak on that. I think it's really important that the committee actually hears what people have to say, residents have to say, and I think it's worth people taking into consideration. We've actually had members of the public turn up tonight. How often does that actually happen at a Swale Borough Council meeting that takes place in this chamber? People turn up to area committee meetings, and the biggest attendance at an area committee meeting that I've seen, guess when that was? When you tried doing this the first time. This is the third time that we're having this discussion, and I don't quite understand the logic of trying to do the same thing repeatedly until eventually it might go through. It was decided that it was a bad idea. Another attempt was made. That was a bad idea. This also, I think, is a bad idea. Now, when this first came to the table, myself and Councillor Jays put an amendment which said to offset the alleged money that would be made by the car parking charges, £24,000 saved by not purchasing 3 parking machines. So to be clear, with this, you're introducing more, so that cost would actually go up. While we're on that, that would be £8,000 per parking machine. So the £8,000 that's been made at the Ship on Shore has just covered the cost of putting in a parking machine and doesn't include the amount of money that was spent redoing that car park, re-tarmacking it and repainting it, which hadn't been done for ages. So I get that you're saying, yeah, there's constant maintenance costs. I'd be interested to know, before that car park was re-tarmacked, when was the last time that car park, the Ship on Shore, received any TLC in terms of resurfacing, repainting the lines, fixing any barriers. We also suggested charging at Swale House during the weekdays and evenings, as we only charge at weekends, or only charged at weekends at that time. Charging for motorhomes on the Shingle Bank and Shellness Road. In fairness, that did get done. Charges from coach parking at the new coach parking facility was agreed to be installed opposite the Shingle Bank. That was agreed on the 1st of March 2023, so perhaps we could have a bit of an update there as to why that hasn't happened. Use the money that would be saved from connecting Barton's Point to mains drainage and now not having to pay the empty cesspit to fund the shortfall, and use any income from Barton's Point from that year to fund the shortfall. So some of that stuff has been done, and that's great, but some of it hasn't. So as Councillor Whiting said earlier, you're better off trying to sort out your outgoings before you're trying to increase revenue, because that's a really good way of balancing a budget. Some of that stuff would decrease outgoings, some of it would increase income from a far better way that wouldn't directly have a massive impact on the people that live in the area, who are already paying council tax, they're already paying income tax on their earnings, they're already paying, if they run a business, they're then paying national insurance contributions for their employers as well. Like, I just kind of feel that this is just trying to squeeze as much money out of people as possible over something that's been absolutely fine for ages. To be absolutely clear, I'm not just here talking about the Little Oyster car park tonight. I don't think that any of those car parks need to have charges introduced. I don't know the one on Grafton Road in Sittingbourne, but I've spoken to a couple of people. Apparently it's very small. I did have a quick look at Front Brent's in Faversham the other day. Once again, it was dark, but really small car park. The Little Oyster is a really small car park. It's got a terrible surface as well. You've said 30 bays, but most of the bays there aren't even marked. No real mapping has been done as to how much income this is going to create, and it's difficult to map that because you don't know how many people are going to park there. So parking on the Lees is free anyway, so people will just go and park there. But the problem you've got is people are already parking there, especially during peak season. So when those spaces have gone, when the free spaces have gone, you're then left with a car park that people can't get a parking space in, or they won't pay. So they'll park on the roads. There's only 2 roads to that car park. You've got the Lees, which has already got parking all the way down one side, and then you've got Seaside Avenue, which is a really steep hill. People can't park there either because it's not practical. It's going to really increase congestion, and the busiest that I have seen, the Ship on Shore car park, and I go past it every day, the busiest I've seen it is when the council had to remove charges because there was roadworks elsewhere on the island, so that was the main thoroughfare from Minster to Sheerness, and the only way to really get around the island, and it was absolute chaos. It was taking people 45 minutes to get from Minster to Sheerness, which ordinarily would take like 5 or 10 minutes. That just caused so many problems, and apart from giving kids somewhere safe to play on their bikes and skateboards and paying for a parking machine, I just don't know what's been achieved by it. There are so many people that use the Lees, and there are so many people that use it for so many different reasons. It's a really good place to park for the park run. It's a great place for dog walkers. A lot of people that park there, sorry, not a lot of people that park there, but when they do beach cleans, that's generally the meeting point. So people are then going there to go down, clean the beach, which is disgusting at times, and we're going to start charging people for that. And removing the half-hour parking fee, like, if someone's just popping into Queenborough Library, realistically, how long are they going to spend there? If they're just popping in to take some book backs, to get some new books out, is that really a good idea to then charge them an hour? I don't think so. It's going to have a really detrimental impact on businesses. Halfway, you're going to get people parking on the street outside the takeaways because they won't want to nip in there in case they get a ticket. They're not going to want to pay for half an hour parking to go and pick a curry up or go and pick a kebab up. That's not going to happen. It's going to reduce businesses to the 2 restaurants that are in Halfway. Also, right next door to that car park, although there is a little bit of parking outside, you have a religious centre. People park there on Fridays. People park there to go to the Islamic centre that's next door. We're really going to start charging people for that. There is no need to introduce any of these parking charges on any of those car parks whatsoever. It's a cash grab and it's wrong. I think we need to have a decent budget meeting this year and find better ways of saving money that isn't going to have a negative impact on people in Swale. Thank you.
Councillor Honey, thank you for that. I'll just have to correct you on one element of that. The reason the Ship on Shore car park was resurfaced was to stop the jolly large encampment that was there, which actually presented issues for the local school in drop-offs and pickups. And I fully accept that people have got different viewpoints on it, but that was done for a reason. Anyway, sorry, Martin, we've got something to
Chair, can I just... I wasn't 100% sure of everything that goes on with the council. I wasn't aware that I knew that was an issue, but I didn't realise that was the overriding factor in it. So apologies if that's misled members.
No, I'm just adding it for information because a number of people have brought up the Ship on Shore car park this evening. It's only because it sits in my ward, that's all. But thank you very much, and again, thank you for coming to represent your ward and your community this evening. Thank you. Sorry, Martin, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, just a couple of points, if I can. You mentioned the shingle bank charging. I think, again, I remember sitting in front of all of you going, I've absolutely no idea how many people are going to use that. I'm pleased to say we're taking good income. We have been. We continue to take good income on that. And so therefore in the budget setting proposals, I've inserted a new income target based around much more accurate data around what it's used. So there is absolutely an understanding that some of this is, we just really don't know. But again, we're basing it upon other similar car parks, similar sizes, in terms of those estimations. You're correct, the coach parking was one element that was passed. It's been added to a long list of projects that my team have to deliver. Each year I go to councillors and ask what are the priorities for the year, and as yet it hasn't got to the top of that list, but again, we absolutely can consider that in future. The Barton's Point cesspit, I probably won't say too much on that because actually that's covered in a later report, but ultimately that's not been delivered because the investigations we've done have shown that it's actually going to likely put more pressure on the revenue budget by connecting it to the mains drains than it is in terms of the cesspit. Reducing costs, clearly I can't predetermine what you guys are going to discuss at P&R, Policy and Resources Committee, in a few weeks' time, but what I do know is not only if we don't consider the measures that you're being considered tonight, there is already a much bigger budget gap even if we don't accept, even if we do accept these. So I absolutely agree, as a council, we need to reduce costs and increase income in order to deliver that balanced budget, and clearly there will be decisions for you across those meetings in order to do that. What's been achieved on the ship and shore, I think Councillor Worcester mentioned that it was an eyesore. It's absolutely been improved for the long term. It's a surface and a presentation that is that will last for a number of years before we need to do that. My team were forever in there filling potholes prior to that piece of work, removing fly tipping, trying to remove abandoned vehicles. So there was a huge amount of officer and council resource that was spent on the ship and shore that we're now simply not having to do. So where we talked about the lower costs of maintenance, I think Councillor Whiting mentioned it, that's because of the action that we took in terms of that improvement project. I think that's probably it for now.
Lovely. Now we've heard both ward councillors and the member of the public. Would any members like to come back quickly so we can... right then, apologies. Councillor Moore, I do apologise, I didn't see your hand. Would you like to speak? Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to thank you for letting me speak. Just as now, I use I go use Halfway car park every day, and the only 2 times a day that car park is busy is when the children are being picked up from school, or in the evenings, people, like you say, picking up their takeaways. This is just gonna, and even with that car park, the parking on the road during school pick up and drop off is awful. So it's going to make that 10 times more dangerous. That car park is the only place for parents to pick up, to park safely, to pick up their children. It's got a direct access gate to the Halfway Primary School. So I think you've really got to look at that car park. Are you punishing the parents for picking up their children by changing the car park? Because it doesn't get used any other time. And in the 6-7 years I've been using it to pick up the children, I don't remember anything being done to it, maintenance wise. So I just wanted to make you all aware that that is the only time. So the only people you're going to be punishing for that is the parents of the children at school. If you start.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. That's a really good point, and we've definitely heard that point. Thank you very much. Perhaps the officer could come back on the public consultation element of it, because I think that could be covered in that as well, couldn't it?
Yeah, I was simply going to say that's absolutely why the legislation requires the public consultation as part of doing the order. They're the types of referrals, and I think we should probably mention we've received an email in from the head teacher of the school today, and our response is exactly that. We will put that into the consultation responses as part of those that public consultation. That information will come back and allows members to make considerations. So there are ways round certain problems. So what that doesn't mean is because one issue or objection has been raised, doesn't mean you need to throw out charging at all times. You could just say, actually, there's certain times where the first half an hour is free, or the charging is between 10 and 2, or lots of different things. And that's information that we'll put forward. At the moment, the proposal is around aligning it with all the other car parks. But clearly, when we hear information from that consultation, that's when we bring back information for members to decide.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just regarding schools, funny enough, two of my parishes have asked me to look at the issue of people being driven to schools when there's public transport to them, in that it's got to such a level that they find it mad that there's 11 vehicles at one point following the bus. With this in mind, I think schools need to sort of make an effort, and parents need to make an effort to not keep constantly driving because it's convenient. So I know it's not easy and some people have to, but it's worth bearing that in mind. I've forgotten the other point I was going to mention now. Just regarding non-powered vehicles, is there any, a bit like in Canterbury, they've put up secure units for bicycles and other things that then mean if people do cycle, would they work? Or, I don't know, just an option. I don't know. I've only just come to this.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and linking it to another area. Sorry, Chair, I jumped in there. I should have done that through.
No worries.
Apologies. And that links, to other parts of the council. I think Councillor Perkins mentioned about, being able to deliver different services by the generation of income. This council is one of the only councils in Kent to have installed an active travel coordinator, and that's exactly what that role is doing, is working with local schools on transport plans, looking at public transport, looking at walking and cycling routes. It enables us to be able to, the income for that is estimated for this, as an example, would go a long way to funding that type of role.
Can I also just add, from my other hat as a school governor, that obviously education falls under KCC's remit, so do most of the buildings and facilities come under KCC. So there has to be an interesting conversation around, for example, why Halfway School doesn't feel they have adequate parking or adequate resources around getting their children to and from without the use of that car park, because that doesn't belong to KCC, it belongs to SWAL. But I do understand the plight of parents, because it's the same for many primary schools over the borough, absolutely. But all schools should be bringing in active transport plans as well, which will be interesting to see how we can support that school going forward. I absolutely agree. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Whiting, you wanted to come back really quickly.
I'm really obliged, Madam Chair, just to let me... Just wanted to remind members, if members vote for these things tonight, you are voting to bring these charges in. Yes, there will be a consultation, but how many consultations have you seen reverse a decision by a decision-making committee? I can't remember any. So if you vote for this now and you approve it, this will happen. There will be a consultation, but it will still happen. I can guarantee that. You are taking a decision tonight. You're not recommending something goes to consultation, and then you come back and think about it again. This is asking you to approve it. And if you approve it, you can't change your mind for 6 months. So it will happen. So I just wanted to put that in members' mind, Madam Chair, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
No worries, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Perkins, and I think we'll take this to the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harrison. Apologies.
Sorry,
apologies, Madam Chair, because I thought I was after Councillor Gibson, who had his hand up ages ago.
I think you'll find that is entirely my fault, and I will re-look at my list, and nobody will miss out, I promise. And apparently Councillor Jays wants to add it onto that, but then we must move this to the vote so that we can move on. We do have a packed agenda. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Perkins.
I don't like to cross Councillor Harrison. So I just wanted to strongly refute what Councillor Whiting has just said, because if we are saying whenever we put anything to consultation that we're actually making a decision, then that sends such a bad message to literally anyone that would ever be consulted on anything. Like, are we saying that our budget consultation is pointless? Are we saying that any other consultation we put out is pointless? Like, as somebody who's just worked really hard on like the customer access strategy, which we literally approved like at the beginning of last week, like what does that say when our councillors are saying that our consultation process is pointless? I think it's really dangerous and not cool.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I was heartily second Councillor Perkins' point, hard disagree with Councillor Whiting on that. And only to add a little bit of context to members' mind, and I know the Faversham members, Councillor Jackson, be familiar with this, but we hear a lot of narrative about the deprivation on Sheppey, which is absolutely real, but I think it is important to remember that the most deprived ward in Swale is Priory Ward, that hosts the Front Brents car park, and it is not Sheppey. Front Brents and Priory is the most deprived ward in Swale. And that car park is primarily used actually by people visiting the Albion pub who are not residents of that ward and probably could afford to pay a couple of extra pounds for their dinners occasionally. Thank you.
Thank you much, Councillor Jays and Councillor Harrison.
Dare I go first? Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, you do. You can.
So if we do approve this, we'd have to take greater care of these car parks. They're currently filthy, especially the ones in Queenborough. They're full of potholes, leaves and other detritus. In 2.17, it says these car parks are well maintained. That's laughable. As we've heard, the Ship on Shore raised 8k in its first year, and 8k is what a parking machine costs. So that was a wasted year, in my opinion. And it doesn't even mention the cost of parking machines in the financial report. I know I've put it out there for everyone to hear, but it should be mentioned in the report. It also mentions under the crime disorder section that free car parks have fewer restrictions on them, and vehicles can therefore be left abandoned. Well, we've got an abandoned vehicles policy, and on the sign in the Little Oyster car park, it mentions abandoned or unroadworthy vehicles will be removed from this car park. Are we lying? Councillor Bowen, you said about we shouldn't be subsidising these free car parks. I agree. Let's not let this council subsidise them. Let's let parish and town councils that want them pay for them. It was also mentioned about parish councils could raise £1 million by selling these car parks. We can put covenants on them to stop charging or stop sales. We haven't talked a lot about in this meeting about scrapping the 30-minute tariff. This is penny pinching for some people. Some people just want to run into town and go to, I won't say the bank, I'll say the building society on the island. That's 10 minutes. Now it costs them not 30-minute charge, it'll cost them an hour's charge. And the hour charge, I'm sure, will go up when we come to budget in a few months' time. Thank you, Councillor Nundy. I'm at a beach clean tomorrow where we'll have dozens of hard-working volunteers, but they probably won't want to come in future. They were all talking about it last time. We were talking about putting charges on. They were saying that a lot of them wouldn't come back if there was charges. That will leave the beach looking filthy because we don't fund our beach cleaning services enough. If this money was going to beach cleaning, I think there may be a different discussion here. The Ship on Shore was resurfaced for one reason and one reason only, and that was to charge on it. Nothing more, nothing less. Coach parking has been brought up. It will cost more now than the 35k we budgeted for and agreed from reserves at that meeting. So that'll have to come back to this committee if this council ever completes that work. I doubt it will. Again, parents won't have to pay a 30-minute charge. They'll be forced to pay an hour to park at halfway. You're there for 10 minutes to drop your kids off. You're now going to be charged for 4 hours parking. I think we should change recommendation 2. It should be amended that after consultation, this returns to this committee for discussion. I know there was talk that it might return. I think we should formalise that and say it will return. It was mentioned about active travel to schools. It is not safe to cycle to this location, and the bus services is Sheppey. Let's not forget, they're almost non-existent. I'd like to see us get the active travel right first before we start charging that car park. We've heard no pushback on Grafton Road or Front Brents, so let's try them this year and look again next year at other ones. Councillor Fowler, you mentioned about staff parking. being charged. My understanding is that some people are looking to pinch staff's pockets in the budget this year, but we'll hear more about that in the next few weeks. We agreed to charge at the Shingle Bank and at Shell Nest to help make up the council's shortfall, and that was a roaring success for the right reasons. This isn't. We've also heard about the impact on independent businesses. I think we should send this out to an informal consultation first so we can hear from residents. And if we say no tonight to this, then we can look at the transfers that we all discussed at full council and we're all quite happy with. And Chair, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote, please.
So I've got Councillor Harrison next, but just to say, just for a point, has the 20-minute free parking in high streets disappeared then?
Good luck getting a spot in the high street.
No.
So just for clarity, if there is still the existence of the 20 minutes free parking in, I think, all 3 town centres, isn't there, for Swale? Just a little bit of clarification here. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to repeat, in words of one syllable, what Councillor Bowen said earlier. When you are elected to Swale Borough Council, you sit on the full council on behalf of your ward. You can say what you like and be as parochial as you like. You are appointed to committees on behalf of the whole council, on behalf of the whole of Swale. And your duty is to do your best on behalf of the whole of Swale, not on behalf of the ward that you happen to have been elected to. And I think not enough members either heard it the first time or understand what it means. Planning is a good point to note. My second point is, as I say, I really wish, Martin, that you had put in words of one syllable the best value legislation, because members still don't seem to have got it. You cannot give something away if you don't know its worth. And the third point is, most of my, apart from, I'd say, the last couple of years, we've not heard it too much, but most of the time I've been on this council, well, Sittingbourne have got it, why haven't Faversham? Faversham have got it, why hasn't Sheppey? Sheppey should have it. And that's what, and so for many, many years, we have tried to balance having the same thing on 3 different sites, unlike most boroughs which have one main centre. And then I read this report and I thought, God, how did Sheppey get away with having all these free car parks for all these years? You hadn't twigged, did you? Okay, so the writing's on the wall. We've been found out. If, as you know, I had it drummed into me for all those years sitting on this council, we have to be fair to all the areas, then we have to be fair to all the areas. And I would say that I would declare a pecuniary interest on that half hour. I don't do shopping. So I nip in, I pay the 30p and nip out. It's not 30p now, is it? Well, it was 10p when I started. But I nip. I mean, an hour, I could almost do Sheerness High Street, drive over and do Sittingbourne as well. You know, because that's how quick I am. But that is a personal interest, and I have to declare that. But we need to be fair. And I think that the final point is that as councillors, on behalf of the borough, you make choices. And some of the choices that this council has made, I totally disagree with. I feel that some of the things that this council, people in this room, I know for a fact, have stuck their hand up for things that I think are a total waste of money, in my view. And I'll say it, the lottery. What the hell's a council getting involved in setting up a lottery? But that went through on a democratic vote and it got set up. You know, my priorities are more the SWEP, making sure that people don't die on the streets in the winter. But that's what it's all about. It's about choices and what you do with the little bit of money that you're able to rake in. Because contrary to what, you know, even my residents think, no, you're not giving £300 a month to Swale Borough Council. For them, you might be giving it to Swale Borough Council, but most of that £300 a month is going up the road to KCC. You know, the little teeny bit that we get left over is hardly worth a thing. So, yes, you are paying a lot, but it's not to us. The little bit that we get, we have to make choices about spending. As I say, it depends. You know, I've swallowed things that I totally disagree with, but others in this room have. So that's what it's all about. You don't always get your own way, but you've got to do what you think is in the best interests of the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. And we're going to take it to the vote now. Councillor Jay's asked for the vote. Can I just check the rules around that? So 3 people need to support. Did we get 3 people to support? Got 2. We need a third.
I am the third.
Is that the...
That's constitutional.
Yep. Other job. Right, recorded vote then. Okay, so need a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations. Proposer, Councillor Harrison. Go have a seconder. Councillor Hunt, please. And let's go to... As amended. Sorry, thank you for adjusting my words there. That's very useful. Right then, so members, I'll read out your names. If you can speak clearly as to for, against or abstain, and then we'll see how we get on. So, Councillor Cheeseman.
For.
Councillor Gibson.
For.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Jays.
Against.
Councillor Marchington. Councillor Perkin.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Mishuk.
Against.
Councillor Bowen.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Paul Stevens.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Stephen.
Against.
Councillor Thompson. For. And I will be abstaining. That's 1 abstention. Okay, just have a quick tally up. That's 1, 2, 3, 9. That's 9 for, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against and 1 abstention. So those recommendations are carried, members. Thank you very much. We will now have a 10-minute break because that's a long item, and thank you very much. Thank you for the members of the public that have also turned up this evening and visiting ward councillors. Thank you. Right then, members, we'll be starting back momentarily, so if you can take your seats and get ready to restart, please. Okay, so just confirm that we've restarted. Lovely. Right. Thank you, members. Let's move on to item number 10, which is the performance report for waste collection and street cleansing services, April 2025 to September 2025. And I refer to the officer to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. A very few key points from me to summarise. So collection performance is in a strong place. Collections are routinely happening on the scheduled days. There are fewer missed bins, and if they are missed, the vast majority are collected the next day after being reported. Work is well underway to ensure all properties have the food collection by April 2026, as required by national legislation. The vast majority already have that service, but the few that don't will be brought online by that date. Regarding food collections, we focused on various campaigns, and performance for food collection has improved considerably. We're 23% higher on food tonnages this year than we were last year. Moving on to street cleansing, with waste collections being in a much stronger place, this remains our focus. And the monitoring and reporting systems to assist us with that is what we're working on at the moment. And this report shows that fly tipping is down. This may be partly due to regular enforcement activity by the Environment Response Team, additional cameras going up, and publicity campaigns around fly tipping and on social media and on billboards. We've also been working on leafing clearance, making sure that Remembrance Day events have gone smoothly with regards to street cleansing, and also on social value. So it's really good to see, as the Chair said at the very start of this meeting, some of those social value facts coming into fruition. It's our first ever social value report that's been attached to this report, and that explains and tries to attempts to monetize the added social value of this contract. And finally, I'll finish just by saying, as Councillor Worcester started, we've worked with partners such as a training provider called CXK and Suez to deliver an Upcycle Your Skills training event on the Isle of Sheppey, which was for young people not in education, employment or training. And as you'll see from the report that we attached to this update, there was some really positive news and results from that event. And I think I'll leave it there and take any questions.
So I'd Councillor Jackson first.
Thank you, Chair. It's on bin and food collection. I failed to understand after months why a particular road in my ward is continuously missed on a regular basis. My resident, I think on a Thursday evening, has a regular hotline to me, and I do to poor old Leanne Pink. And I'd just like it explained to me why it's been throughout the summer. They do all the roads surrounding it, but they somehow miss this road. And I'd like an explanation for my residents. Thank you.
With regards to the specific details, I'm sure the officers are aware. I don't know the details offhand, but happy to take it offline and give you a statement and with regards to what we can do to ensure that doesn't happen.
Thank you, Chair. Can I come back?
Yes.
They are aware of it. They've sent people out on the round with them to do it. It'll be okay for 1 week, which was last week. Tomorrow morning, he'll be on to me. Tomorrow evening with reference number, I expect. Because this has been ongoing. And sometimes the food bins were actually left for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, can't think who was at Policy and Resources, but I did raise the issue of the KPIs, that the waste will never hit the target because we had the problems right at the start, and that they really need to look at that, some sort of interim, because if you're never going to hit the target, there's little point having it. And we know you will never hit the target unless you've got them out working nights as well, free of charge, of course. The second point, the social value, I think members should take quite a bit of credit for this, because we pushed when we were talking about the contract initially. Really pleased with that, and obviously the work that our staff put into it. Will we be, I know you said, it says here that you're going to be concentrating on the street cleansing, but will we be tightening up on the, number one, please don't chuck my bin back at my house. It might end up by my house, it's more likely to be down the road. Please put it back where you found it nicely, because otherwise you will be paying for a new one. But on the other side, will we be tightening up on residents and what they put in their bins, recycling bins? And I'm thinking white plastic bags, which supposedly have recycling in. I'll be honest and say I do not go down the street and cut the bags open to look, but there are a number of houses that I pass that do have, like your white plastic bags that you have in your bin, that they are put in the recycling. To be fair, if you put it in loose, as I do and most people do, you get a lot more in. But I know that there are, and those white bags, you can't quite see what's in them. So, and I know we are not supposed to put anything other than clear bags or sacks in those recycling bins, if that. So that's a tightening up issue for residents. But I think overall the message is getting through to the majority of our residents about the recycling, and quite a lot of people put it in because, well, it says on the packet recycling. Yeah, but not by Swale. And of course the other big thing is the Tetra Paks, which a lot of the supermarkets are moving over to, and that goes in the residual waste. I, of course, travel far and wide to get my plastic bottles, which will go in my recycling bin. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I think Councillor Jays was next.
Thank you, Chair. Remembrance was brought up. In CNS, there was, I wouldn't say Suez did a great job. There was still fly posting up right in front of the cenotaph. And the same weeds that have been there for 3 years on all the islands were present. So I really would like to see a sharpening up of this. Obviously, in previous years, I said, can we make sure we do it right? And so is Mr. Mark last year and Mr. Mark again this year. It mentions about deep cleans. I would like to see some deep cleans actually come to the parish I'm in, because we could really do with it. And for some reason, Minster, despite being the third largest populace, is missed off when it comes to deep cleans. I've read Suez's propaganda, but I see no improvement on the ground. There's still street bins regularly overflowing and detritus on pavements and roads. I think that on roads it's at an all-time high on the island. We're 18 months into the contract and Suez need to up their game. I'm glad to hear the ACT team mentioned here. I think they do a vital service. And I checked at the start of this meeting, and if I wanted a bulky waste collection, I'd have to wait 24 days. I think this is unacceptable. I brought it up last time. We really need to improve our bulky waste offering. It brings in a small amount of money to the council, but who wants to wait around with their rubbish for 24 days? I don't know why. People might get tempted to fly tip. In here it mentions under crime disorders, swift removal of litter and fly tipping, assisting in reducing the broken window effect and keeping the borough clean. I wish Suez would understand that and would remove things quicker.
Thank you, Councillor James. Would you like to come back on that at all?
With regards to some of the comments from Councillor Harrison, the contamination is something we're absolutely focusing on. We're working with Suez, with Kent County Council as well, to try and tackle the contamination. There'll be some future campaigns, hopefully, which will be trialled in Swale and hopefully rolled out over other boroughs throughout Kent as well. So we are absolutely looking at the contamination issues. And the Tetra Paks you mentioned as well, that's something that's been dealt with on a national stage with regards to the consistency from simpler recycling. So it will be there'll be national or regional infrastructure required in order to recycle Tetra Paks. But the idea is that if something's not easily recyclable, fees will be modulated on producers, packaging producers. So they'll be paying a higher fee through simpler recycling if the packaging they use isn't easily recyclable. But it requires industry to get behind the recycling of Tetra Paks and for them to generally feel that that's a material that could be used more widely for packaging. So there's still some work to do on Tetra Paks, I believe, but I think it is one of the materials that will be recyclable, should be recyclable from next April. And regarding some comments from Councillor Jays, we're looking at improving the IT systems that we use for both street cleansing and the litter bin emptying. So that's work that we're still working on at the moment. We've had some resource implications over the last few months. We had the officer who was leading on that unexpectedly leave. We've not been able to recruit into that post as yet. So officers are being moved around to try and ensure that we get that delivered as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perkins.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. I think it's really helpful and it does show some quite promising kind of moves forward in terms of residents recycling and also using the food waste collections. I was just wondering, like within the report at 2.27, it clearly illustrates the things that are problematic in terms of contaminating recycling bins, and it kind of outlines that we had done some social media and some educational stuff previously, and then we were looking at kind of the more stick version of carrot and stick at the minute. But is there anything that we can do in terms of outreach? So if, as an example, if a resident is quite regularly contaminating it with nappies and it happens more than once, is there outreach that we can do to that residents to make sure that their green bin is adequate and that maybe they need a bigger one or they need a second one? Is that something that we could look at? And also in terms of kind of the fact that 72% of waste food in the bins could have been avoided, that's quite a large percentage. So are we going to be doing anything to make it really explicitly clear that the impact that food waste has on contamination and also on the environment in terms of making sure that we're recycling it appropriately? I think a lot of people are really keyed into their environmental impact, and I would say a lot of people want to do better with environmental protections in their own kind of small way, and I think that that's a message we could communicate, that actually that's problematic. But within 2.27, obviously you've got black bags and food waste, but textiles previously were recyclable but aren't, and I wonder whether that's just a hangover from when they were previously recyclable. But sanitary and nappies, I mean, I'm pretty sure most people know that they're not recyclable, like used nappies, so I wonder whether like we can make it very clear that those are not recyclable and it's having X impact on the service, and that just putting one load of nappies in your bin can write off an entire load of recycling, and then put in some additional stuff to go back to those households to ask what would improve that for them, to give them the opportunity to change what they're doing.
Yeah, I think everything you said there is absolutely valid points. With regards to the outreach to regular offenders, we do try and engage with them when we identify the regular offenders. We'll try and educate them. We'll try and bring them back on board, explain the performance we need from them, and the reasons why we need that performance. We are currently developing a more detailed comms plan to tackle the issue of contamination, because it is one of our priority areas. We recognise that future funding for collecting these materials will depend upon how efficient and effective we are. So we're absolutely working with the comms team to ensure we're doing that in the most clearly understandable way. We're also working with Kent County Council because they've got a vested interest in the better quality of recycling as well. So we've got some campaigns which are being developed at the moment to try and get to the point, the point of bin presentation, to look at that in detail and engage with the people who could do a little better and ensure that those entire loads are not rejected because of a small minority of people doing the wrong thing.
Martin?
Just wanted to add one thing to that is we're currently pursuing a project with Ashford and Maidstone to utilise some of the performance deductions that we made on the contractor last year to fund some of exactly that, some of those outreach workers to be able to go out and help with the contamination education project. So obviously when we get to the end of year report, hopefully we'll be able to report a bit more on that. Members may also be aware that we've had some fairly sizable chunks of money come from the packaging legislation changes, whilst obviously that mainly goes towards the costs of the contract. We have been given the ability to utilise some of that for the campaigns that Alistair's just mentioned. So it's really important because the amount of money that we get from those packaging providers moving forwards will be absolutely dependent upon our performance on contamination and recycling. So it's absolutely vital that we use some of that money to be able to do that behaviour change work.
Just quickly, I just wanted to add that if we're reaching out to partners, I think it's well worth looking sideways as opposed to just looking at, for instance, at Suez. I think KCC have got a vested interest here. We could be happily looking at Kent Family Hubs for education purposes. We could be looking at early help. We could be looking at GP or health inputs, because even though it's a much smaller amount, obviously medical has come into that contamination level as well. So that instead of us saying, well, we've yet again done another social media campaign, actually it might be worth looking at targeted responses with partners so that they do some of the heavy lifting on supporting their stakeholders into creating a better response, if that makes sense, possibly. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Just some observations on this. I agree. I think it was Councillor Jade said about the fly posting. This is something for donkey's years has been an issue, probably in all boroughs, but people are very, very quick to put posters up on lampposts and in other places, but a lot slower at trying to take them down if they ever do come down, and or potentially when they do, they fall down of their own accord, and they create extra litter. I don't know if you'll ever get an answer or a real proper solution to that, other than really enforce it, but then to do that you need to know who put them up in the first place, which a lot of these things don't tend to do unless it's sort of Santa Circus or other circuses are available. In terms of the actual report, the 2.33 food waste, 70% of food waste could have been avoided. Is that, when you say avoided, is that sort of portion size and that we're actually wasting a lot of food which could have been either reheated or actually not cooked and saved for a different meal, or what actually is, I'm assuming it, my thought process is correct there. In terms of street cleansing, a bugbearer, which is again on the increase it feels like and infuriates so many people, and it's an education, no, I'm not sure it's an education piece because the people who do it probably couldn't give a monkeys in the first place, is the ever-increasing amount of dog's muck and detritus that's on the pathways. Responsible dog owners will deal with it. Irresponsible dog owners don't deal with it, and in that case, it's very difficult to educate. In terms of one last point, in terms of the reports, and you don't need to answer this one now if you're can't, or do you want to feed back afterwards? I think they're called special collections for those who have extra processes or needs for their waste collections. I've got one in my ward, Martin knows about it, on Station Road. We're basically looking at those collections where sewers come in and the bin won't be out, they have to go in and take it out from certain areas and put it back, or do other parts to assist with the...
Is that assisted collection?
Assisted collection, that's probably there, thank you. Have you any figures on that in terms of numbers of assisted collections and any issues with those assisted collections? I know it should be small in comparison to the grand scheme of things, but for those people, they are very, very important. Thank you.
You want to come back on that?
Thank you. Regarding fly posting, it is something we try to tackle if we can find out who's caused the problem. We have got limited resources to deal with that. So we have to prioritise accordingly, but when we come across it, it is within the contract to take that down. So if you do have reports of fly posting, please do put them through, and we'll try and remove those using the street cleansing crews. With regards to the 72% of food was avoidable, I don't know the specifics. I know a lot of the food that goes into the general waste bin is still packaged, so it's just been in people's fridges. And it's just been thrown away because it's gone out of date, and that's a key area for us to focus upon as well. So that was something that that we're going to be trying to work on.
Can I just clarify that? So in the food, are you saying that people are throwing also the container containing the food in the food waste?
Yeah. So it might be some fruit in some packaging or something, and they've just looked at the date and thrown the entire thing into the general waste. General waste? Yeah, yeah. Not into the food waste. No, into the general waste.
Just to confirm, then the officer has confirmed that it's food and food packaging together going into the green bin as opposed to the little food caddy. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And sorry, the last point with regards to the collections, we do have data on assisted collections. I've not put it into this report, but if that's something that members are keen to see in the future, then it's something we can consider putting into the annual report.
Yes, please. I'd be interested. I'm seeing lots of nods.
I think that's a really good addition to the next. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on food waste, because although it was said about that things have improved with a campaign that was done, but obviously it's still a long way to go, because it's 27% of food waste in the green wheelie bins, or 27% of waste in green wheelie bins is food waste. That's still a massive amount. And I must admit, I've been told off by cleansing officers before for saying this, but I don't put it in. I'll just throw it in the normal general waste, because it's so much easier. And that is what that's what a lot of people do, which obviously proves the point. That's why it's so high. But in here it says that focus needs to be on better participation by residents in food waste collection. Actually, I think we need to do more as a council to do this as well. There is more that can be done, but a lot of people say to me, well, we don't get the bags and everything. I'm not going to go out and pay for bags and put it in a little grey bin that sits in the kitchen that I don't really want, because it doesn't go with the kitchen thing. So I think there's more that needs to be done by the council to help get people doing this. And it's not going to be easy. Just a comment on the street cleansing. On 2.35, it says sewers have completed their road cleansing scheduling. This is 2 years after they've actually started. They're actually now just completing what their scheduling is going to be, because it's a bit of a concern if we are at that point. We should be, the cleansing should be done the scheduling should be done at the beginning, surely. And we should be at the point now where everything is running to plan and all the streets are being cleaned. So it'd just be good to hear a bit more on that, where we are at with that. And also, just finally, the autumn leaf cleansing schedule is commenced to target roads where leaf litter is more of an issue. This is at 2.38. Just a request, can ward members be informed when that's happening and where it is? Because if it's in our wards, it'd just be good to know, because I know lots of roads on the Meads, particularly where leaf fall is a problem. And it would just be good to know if that is being done, because if residents start coming to me saying, this hasn't been done, it would be good to know when it should be being done and if it has been done or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. We'll go on to Councillor Cheeseman and Councillor Thompson and then come back to the officer for a response. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In regard to communal properties, are they starting to have food bins themselves? I know at the moment a lot of them have just got a green bin or a blue bin, but not food caddies. Can they request them, the individuals? Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, it was only a couple of things. I just wondered whether there was a correlation between the change of, licensing on pickups, small pickups, because I noticed that's the biggest area of fly tipping. Since they've done that and they're now allowed in waste sites, whether there's a correlation to the reduced fly tipping or not, I'm just interested by that. And then Martin was saying about funding. Is there a initiative for education in schools around waste? Because I find children, mine's one of them, always badgers me about actually packaging before it gets consumed. Whether we could look at something initiative on that, because what we've learned is with different things that we do, that once a child gets to 14, 15, it's ingrained to them how they're going to behave, which is quite often influenced from parents. So 5 to 6, 10 to 11 and 14 to 15 is a good periods to add to sort of bring things in different increments of education. And then I just wondered, education as well, for James just saying about what he puts in the bin. What I've noticed running something is a lot of people think they're going to catch something from something that's out of date, so they just put it in the bin. So I just wondered again whether that's something we could educate on, especially if it's all vegetable stuff. You're not going to get anything from it. But and then I just wondered how much, just as a positive note, so encourage people, what sort of amount of gas or fuel do we get from our food waste, or do we? And then we could say, look, we get this much. This is what it helps with. And then just to give people a bit of encouragement, so then there's a positive for them putting it in the food caddy rather than in the waste bin. That was all. Thanks.
Alistair, do you want to come back on any of those?
Yeah, I think I managed to scribble all of them down. We totally agree with regards to the food waste campaigns. And again, as I said earlier, we're working with the comms team on a comms plan to get a lot of those messages out. On that last point there about energy from waste, we've actually got some videos we did with KCC that talk about what happens to your food waste, where it goes to, and about the energy created from processing that food, and the what happens to the materials left over and how that's reused within the agricultural industry. Few of the other points, street scheduling, I think Councillor Hunt asked about that. That is what we're working on at the moment. Suez have got that information. They're looking at doing an upload on street scheduling in December. So they're still currently doing that work at the moment. They're still visiting all the roads and so forth, but it will become more easily monitorable and reported upon once it's uploaded into the system, which the date we're working to at the moment will be December, then litter bins following on in January. And the leaf litter, we do have a leaf litter plan. The roads that we've identified, the main areas such as Avenue of Remembrance and so forth, where there's plenty of trees there, and some of the residential areas where there's a high level of trees, they are on our leafing plan. So they're paid extra attention by the crews when they're out and about. But if there are areas we've missed, we can look at getting those added in for next autumn's leafing plan as well. Communal properties, yeah, absolutely. It says in the report, and I did have a bullet point on it in my summary, but I struck through a few things in order to try and speed things up. But the communal properties, they will be having food communal bins by next April, by the 1st of April, so the end of March. and that will include the flats or households that have that communal shared bin store. They'll be getting their caddies as well. That's a project that Kelly's been working on. And with regards to education in schools, I mean, I've mentioned the comms plan that we're working on. We've done a lot of work to increase the food uptake, and as we've seen, we've had a 23% increase by going to the point of disposal, which is on the wheelie bins, and we put lots of stickers on those bins to say no food in these bins. That's had a really positive impact on the food quantities within the food caddies, and we've also distributed almost 8,000 food bins, I think, which again will help with people using them. We know there's more to do. We've got, or Suez have got a environmental officer or champion, and she's been going out to schools and speaking to some of those children in the schools as well to try and get a further impact on that, amongst some of the other social value items we've already spoken about. I think that's all of the items.
So, yep, I've just got 2 questions for you myself, if that's okay. Sorry, I'll make it really quick. The first is around schools. Most schools will have students that are recycling champions or waste champions, and they're very keen actually at primary school age. So what I'd potentially like to encourage is maybe a schools toolkit, so that instead of us having to send out an officer to schools, you would actually send out a batch of resources that would allow those people who know those children best to actually start to incorporate waste conversations into their overall education. And on the basis that from the last 2 waste reports, Councillor Jackson isn't the only person that comes back and talks to me about very location-based issues in their ward, and quite often on these meetings the response is, quite rightly, for these sort of agenda items, we cannot be looking at individual neighbourhoods or individual location issues in these meetings. So I would like to explore, possibly outside of the meeting, a way to incorporate area committees in terms of a way of having a reporting function back to specific areas that are covered by those area committees. It may be via officer, it may be by a written report, where we're actually highlighting the areas and what work has been done. Whether it's been entirely successful, we know that's never going to be the case with the bin contract, not 100% on anything, as we all know, but we have to be mindful that we've made leaps and bounds on the bin contract, and officers have worked incredibly hard, and actually that could also be a good way of sharing the good news. For example, the reduction in fly tipping, and how we're now focusing down on areas that are repeat fly tipping areas. I think all of that sort of stuff could be very location specific and be some really good news. And we are looking for ways of area committees to be more engaging with residents. And I think waste is one of the particular areas where we might be able to explore that potential. Obviously, you don't need to respond to that now. Maybe we could take that outside the meeting potentially. Martin, have you got anything to sum up?
Just on that, I'm fairly certain that as part of the tender submission, we did talk about a schools toolkit. Clearly, we've got 8 years to deliver a whole range of social value over there. So we're not going to deliver everything in year 1 and year 2, but absolutely, that's the type of work that Kelly's team and the Suez officer can do. I think it was Councillor Birkin again that mentioned carrot and stick, and I saw Kelly write down that the stick needs to visit Councillor Hunt's property. So I've taken that as an action for tonight. I think what goes on what does the food waste do? Alistair mentioned it. I actually signed off a leaflet from somebody in Kelly's team today, a lady called Donna Seeger, who's our campaigns and education officer, and there's a wonderful diagram of the biogas that it creates and the fertiliser that's used on the food, on the fields that creates the food that we eat. So there's a really nice diagram and message around that. And by the way, it's much cheaper for taxpayer PLC. So recycling a tonne of food waste is vastly cheaper than burning a ton of waste in the incinerator, of green bin waste in the incinerator. So it's much better financially for us all, as well as for the environment.
Councillor Harrison, have you got something really quick, because we're running 5 minutes over on this item?
Quick. It's fine educating Joe and Josephine out there, but if we're not tuned in here, we've got a problem. Now, it's very brave of you, James, to admit it, but how many more Jameses are there out of the 47 of us? Well, of course you are, love, aren't you? Yes. However, no, you know, we should be leading by example. I mean, I've been into it since I got on this council, so you know I'm there. We used to make a surplus, dirty word, surplus on our recycling. Yes, but you know if there is even half a dozen councillors who haven't quite got it, then we need to wrap our arms around them and show them the way. Show them the light.
I'm sure we will, Councillor Harrison. Okay, Councillor Perkins, super quick.
Yeah, very quickly. I think we're going into schools is such an important way of doing it. So my daughter regularly shames my husband for being rubbish at recycling, and actually has him saved in her phone as Slapdash Recycler. So you can get him through the kids, you can get the parents for sure.
That's a very polite way for your daughter to describe it. I'm sure my children would describe their father slightly differently. Right, so this is a report to note. So we don't really need a proposer and seconder for noting, do we? So can we assume that we've noted this report, members? And then move on to item number 11, which is public conveniences. Obviously, before the officer introduces his report, I'll just let you know we're going to operate the same way of having members discuss the item first, then we'll bring in visiting ward councillors who is on this item, Councillor Tony Winkler and Councillor Tom Nundy. So, Martin, if you'd like to introduce the report, please.
Actually,
Andre, how rude, sorry about that. It's Andre that's introducing the report.
Good evening, everyone. So on the 10th of July this year, the Public Convenience Review business case was presented at this committee. The report is attached as a background paper to tonight's report. The business case is also included here tonight under Appendix 3 as a blue paper for reference. The background is that the public conveniences hadn't been reviewed in a long time, and a review was needed to determine if savings could be made, also considering the impact on local residents, visitors and businesses. As such, we believed that the best option was to close some toilets, offer to transfer some to town and parish councils, and introduce a community toilet scheme. We found that significant savings could be made of up to 300k. However, these could only be achieved with the support from members to operate services more efficiently. In determining the impact of these recommendations, an equality impact assessment was completed and a public consultation was conducted. The consultation is attached in Appendix 1. We received a significant amount of responses reflecting Swales' demographic as a whole. This also included representations from visitors, several community groups, town and parish councils, as well as area committees. Where we did not receive responses, every attempt was made to receive all different views. And based on the feedback received, each public convenience's operating costs, the condition of each public convenience, the amount of people who visit daily, and amount of antisocial behavior reports, and what other local authorities are doing were considered. So it is recommended that 3 public conveniences should be closed from 1st of April 26, that is Milton Regis High Street, the Forum, and the White House. Also to offer to transfer 7 public conveniences to town and parish councils or appropriate local organizations, to aim to introduce a community toilet scheme in areas impacted by closures. and to authorise officers to undertake a tender process for the opening, cleansing and maintenance of the remaining facilities, with the option of including those to be transferred for a 12-month period to the contract whilst negotiations continue with town and parish councils. Additionally, should the recommendations not be approved, the savings could not be achieved, committee are asked to identify where else savings could be made within the scope of this committee. Thanks.
Thank you for that introduction. Just before we start, I'd like to thank or draw members' attention to the responses from groups of people, because they obviously speak on behalf of potentially people who would not come forward to take part in consultation themselves. I'd also like to thank the chairs of the area committees. I attended 3 out of the 4 area committees to support both the public convenience consultation and the LC-WIP consultation that was going on at the same time. And I was really pleased to hear some really good discussion that, again, this committee might not have heard if we had just not asked those area committees to take part in that consultation work as well. And I would like to thank the officer for such a detailed piece of work, because there are 6 recommendations attached to the report this evening, and I think each one of those has a considerable amount of work that's gone into it, so thank you very much for that. Right. Lovely job. Councillor Bowen, I think you were first.
Thank you, Chair, and agree in terms of the report. Good report, thank you for that. Again, some observations. First one, if we progress with this, if this is agreed later, and particularly I'm thinking one in Sittingbourne, and I'll decide shortly whether this is a proposed recommendation change or see how it goes. My concern is if we close the forum, and on 2.16, as explained earlier, funds could be used to upgrade the library car park facility to ensure it could cope with increased usage. I'd like a bit more information in terms of that, because I'd be interested to think how you could actually upgrade that particular site from what it currently is, because it's of a certain size, and if that means, probably most expensive case scenario, demolishing it, rebuilding it with a nice new toilet block, for example, then what we don't want to have is, I would suggest, the forum shut and Central Car Park or Central Avenue car toilets also shut, which leaves us with nothing. Is it prudent to actually, if we are looking to upgrade one, for the duration of those works, to make sure that the other one is still kept open, just in case people need to spend a penny or 2. There was no pun intended on that one. I just realised what I said. Sorry. I think in terms of the option for a community scheme, toilet scheme, in theory sounds great, but I refer back to my comments earlier about the car parking, where we have a duty and we should be looking at the service which we need to provide rather than subsidising others. And we shouldn't therefore be looking to have to ask businesses to subsidise us to provide a toilet scheme for people to use, because we can no longer operate it. In theory, I think it sounds great. I wouldn't be at all surprised if businesses say, why would, that's you chose to do that. Why should we give our facilities up for potentially nothing? But overall, good report. But other than those 2 slight caveats, but I'll see what people think in terms of whether that becomes a recommendation shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I think it was a good report, and I fully accept that we must close 3 toilets as part of savings. But the point I wish to comment on is, we're not going to be charging for toilets, which I think is absolutely the right thing, not to charge. But I have a concern that if the parishes and towns take them over, will they be allowed to charge or not? Because I think this is something which I could not agree to. Thank you.
Would you like to come back on those first two speakers? Thank you.
Okay. In terms of the upgrades to the library car park toilets, that would be mainly towards energy efficiency improvements, and it would be mainly from funds allocated from the UK Prosperity Fund, which isn't enough to rebuild a whole new toilet. I'm not sure if Martin would like to add on to that afterwards. But in terms of the community toilet scheme, I think it is also about working with businesses. And in terms of the amount local businesses would be receiving for subsidized toilet facilities, it is much less compared to what it would be costing the council for running an equivalent public toilet. And many businesses already do offer public convenience services to members of the public without them having to pay for goods or services. So I think the amount that would be paid towards community toilet scheme businesses wouldn't be an equivalent as such. So it would ensure that residents who do need to use public conveniences do have access still, but without us having to pay as much as we do currently. And also one point I also wanted to make note on that is we do have a lot more public conveniences that we provide compared to a lot of our neighbours as well. In terms of parishes, I believe in the last committee when we discussed public conveniences, there was an amendment so that transfers do include as part of the condition not to charge for public conveniences.
Martin?
Just to come back on Councillor Bowen's point. So you're absolutely right. It would be pretty silly to close one of them and then close another for 3 months to refurbish it. So we would absolutely take that into consideration based upon tonight's decision. The money from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund needs to be spent by the end of March next year. We've already been on site at the library car parks to start getting quotes and improvements there. Whilst we can't make the building physically bigger with the available money, what we can do is change drainage systems, improve those. We can, so that we have less downtime, we can upgrade heating. As Andre said, at the moment, we leave our lights on all day in our toilets. So putting in motion censored lights so that our running costs go down. So again, the more by upgrading the systems, we're saying, and of course we'll look at layout as well. So if we can get an extra cubicle in, or if we can change the layout, that will absolutely be considered. We believe that the combination of daily average uses at the forum and the library can be accommodated by the existing toilets. But what we'll be doing is upgrading them so that there's less downtime of blockages, closures, etc., and obviously a much higher level of finish within the toilets. So just to clarify on that one. And with the community toilet scheme, we've taken the liberty of asking businesses already, and some have come forward. So in answer to the question, why would they? Certainly they have done in Ashford and they have done in Maidstone. We've already got some interest in the areas affected with these closures. Why would they? I guess they're hoping that people might spend some money in the business that wouldn't normally, and are being recompensed for consumables, toilet roll, etc. by the council.
Just really quickly on that basis, as Councillor Bowen's already brought it up, would the upgrades for the Sittingbourne toilets perhaps include the radar key scheme, which I know is incredibly popular with lots and lots of groups in Swale? I'm not saying you have to answer that now. I'm just saying, could we pop it in as a consideration to make toilets more accessible? If we're going to do an upgrade, then it sounds that useful that perhaps we consider that at least. Just moving on quickly to Councillor Gibson.
Sorry, just on that, Chair, I'm looking at my toilet guru. She tells me there's already a radar card key system there. So.
Oh, well, brilliant. What value added just in that one sentence. Excellent. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. I probably should have vocalised my written down declaration of interest that on behalf of this council I'm a trustee of the All Gunpowder Works, which I had failed to spot was on that list. But as I say, I do it on behalf of this council, so I think that's a standard pecuniary interest, non-pecuniary interest, sorry. My question really was around the community toilet scheme. Could we, or would this committee be prepared to expand that to certainly start in the areas directly affected by this closure, but roll it out across the whole borough, because actually a council-backed borough-wide scheme would have huge benefits to my residents in Faversham, because our toilets are in broadly central locations, and many of our businesses are further out of the town centre, and they would benefit, but certainly the villages surrounding Faversham as well would gain real benefit from that. And though they're not directly affected by this closure, it is an opportunity for us to improve our quality of service overall.
Sorry, Councillor Gibson, was that a proposal to change one of the recommendations?
If the Chair's minded to support and accept that. Yeah.
I'm happy to second that.
Yeah.
So, what would be your wording be?
So, 4 currently reads, to introduce a community toilet scheme in the areas impacted by closure. I would propose we add after that sentence and roll out across the rest of the borough
in a timely
following a trial
fashion.
period. Yeah, in a timely fashion. I think it's good.
I'm happy to second that proposal. All in favour of that proposal? Oh, apologies. Sorry, Councillor Byrne, you wanted to speak to the proposal.
Thank you. Just totally endorse that. And just by an example, I know we've probably within our own ward, but as an example where this would be really useful. At the moment, if you arrive at Faversham train station and you are a very keen walker and you leave central Faversham and you decide to walk along the Saxon Shoreway, there are no public toilets until you get to Sittingbourne. Nothing between Faversham and Sittingbourne if you go that way. So a community-led scheme, you could potentially look at stop points in, yes, there are pubs, there are other businesses, but if we could bring that in, I think that would be really useful. So I would totally endorse that and go for it. Thank you.
Councillor Hunt?
Thank you. Just one thing, thinking about this. If we say about we would pay these businesses a little bit to think, what happens if 5,000 businesses, if we're going out across the borough, suddenly come in and say, yeah, we're up for that. How much money is in the budget to actually do it?
Martin?
The master of doom, as I always am, I absolutely understand the proposal, and I'm certainly not here to, to tell members what to do. You guys need to vote. Clearly, this paper and review was motivated by, is the service right, and can we run it in a more efficient and lower cost way? So any additional proposals will obviously erode the potential savings. I have to say that. Otherwise, the Section 151 officer will tell me off. Clearly, you have those considerations to make at budget proposals. You've got the financials in front of you. If we had 5,000 come forward, clearly we couldn't accommodate that. I would be very surprised if we did. And I absolutely understand the values of why Councillor Gibson has proposed that. So that's for you guys. All I need to say to you is there is a potential for a reduction on the savings available through those decisions. But if it was capped, if it was reviewed, if there was a criteria put forward for it, then it's entirely sensible.
I probably would assume that much like our own current public conveniences, there has been an assessment as to when they were initially installed in the borough, the similar idea that you don't have 3 public conveniences in a row. There's always got to be a criteria. So I do take the point, absolutely, but I think we can add a large splash of common sense to that, can't we? Councillor Harrison.
On these community toilets, can I suggest that one of you goes over to Kings Hill? We had to go with a relative to an optician there, referred from MTW, and the relative needed the facility, and they said, "Oh no, but it's just through there, through that little between shops, just well through there." Turned out to be the pub, but the toilets were accessed. Literally, the back door was kept open, and that was how you access, and it was normal. So I don't know whether it was when the place was set up, you know, when that little thing was built, but it was just normal. People used the toilet at the back of the inside, or I would say, not out in the open, but it was normal. So it might be worth wandering over and seeing what's what.
My daughter's actually playing football there on Sunday, so you've just given me an excuse to go to the pub, Angela.
Excellent. Let's swing back to Councillor Gibson's proposal then, and we can all hear about how that goes another time. So we've had a proposer, I've second, so all in favour of Councillor Gibson's proposal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm in favour, so it's 13 in favour. Any against? Any abstentions? So, can we just have those in favour again, please? Apologies, I obviously didn't count properly.
Including you, 1 abstention.
Lovely job. That's passed. Excellent. So back to the substantive, and the next person I've got on my list is Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess first of all, it's pretty wild that toilet facilities in public is a non-statutory obligation for the council. I would like to see councils, again, as I've said it before, be funded properly to provide services instead of having to pick which ones it shuts because it's got no money. So I think my main concern, especially with the responses to the consultation, is that over 500 people have responded to say that they have a long-term physical health, ill need or disability, or a long-standing illness or condition such as Crohn's disease or urinary incontinence, and answered, would the closure of any of the facilities impact your daily life due to the following? So quite a large percentage of people will be impacted by it that have quite significant additional needs. Also, as well, I note that 30 people have responded that it would impact their daily lives because of pregnancy. Obviously, that's a time-limited thing, but more people will become pregnant next year after those people have stopped being pregnant. I think that community toilet schemes are positive where you can ensure reliability and consistency, because local businesses and charity sector groups can withdraw from that at any point. That means that it means that we can't rely on the private sector to be able to provide public services, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be able to do it, and it's frustrating that we're in the position that we're in. Well, it's awful, actually. It's not frustrating, it's genuinely awful. There is a gendered impact to closing public toilets, which I think worsens gender inequality and access to public spaces, and that's something that we should take really seriously. We know that women are more likely to use public services of all kinds, but it's specifically in this case public toilets. It also, I think, puts barriers to independent living for people who are disabled. Not all private sector toilets are accessible to those people, but they're also not accessible to people who might be homeless or because it means having to access a private business to be able to use the conveniences. And actually, I think that can cause barriers for people who still need to use toilet facilities but don't feel able to access private businesses to be able to do that. So, I mean, I understand why the proposal has come forward. I think the public consultation and the response to it is really indicative of the people that it will impact. And I think we should really be conscious of that when we make a decision. Because this will be impacting people in the borough who are in need of these services. It won't be everybody, but it will significantly impact those people that need it most. And I think we just need to be conscious of that when we make the decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. On that note, we heard at Sheppey Area Committee from a few disability groups about the impact this would have on them. One even spoke about the impact the White House had on them, and I know they've raised it several times to the parish council, the issues they're having. I don't agree with recommendation 2, which is to permanently close free toilets. I think they should also be offered out as part of a transfer. I'm surprised that isn't an option to us. Obviously, I can propose that and make an amendment. 2.12, I welcome the way different ways of funding the toilets, such as the scheme we've heard about. The library toilets need more than just energy saving measures. I know the men's is a bit of a mess, and squeezing any more cubicles will put more screw holes. There's probably more screw holes in that toilet than anywhere else, really. You could do dot to dot the amount of toilets there are. I'd like to put an extra recommendation on here, if you'd allow me, Chair, and I think that's to propose to install baby changing in all toilet sites that we keep open. Residents have constantly contacted me about this, and Barton's Point being one of them. They play with their kids for hours on end, and then they need the toilets. And that's no good. If you've got to go home to change your child, that's playtime over for the day. So I'm hoping I can get seconded for that, and we can have that as a recommendation. I'd like to ask a question: do we own the Forum toilet block? Because otherwise we can't really transfer it. And I think the White House toilets should remain open. I know they were originally closed due to subsidence investigations, and obviously it was found out that it's only that accessible toilet that's subsiding, so I think that should be rebuilt and reopened. Thank you, Chair.
Martin.
I don't know if Andre wanted to answer any of those, but if I attempt and then you come in, completely agree on why non-statutory. Unfortunately, councils have to make decisions on statutory, non-statutory services every year. I absolutely agree that the consultation showed a number of those implications. And I'm not undermining those at all. The only thing I would say is that led to a really careful decision around which sites were put forward and which weren't. So certainly the Forum and the White House have close toilets in very close proximity, and that's why they were put forward. And we understand we do have some options on community toilets in and around the Milton area, so that's why that one's put forward. In terms of Councillor Jay's questions, why not offered? Two of those 3 toilets are in unparished areas, so there was nobody to offer them to. The third one, my understanding was that the property team liaised with that parish council who said no, so therefore we put that forward. So they were where available. And then in terms of do we own the Forum toilets, we own the building, we don't own the land it sits on. We have a long-term lease on the Forum car park and the land that the toilet sits on.
Just to support this discussion a little bit though. If the toilets do close, the parish council can still go for the asset transfer of the asset. It will just be closed, which then I'm assuming the parish council can then reopen, as it will be their asset rather than Swales, possibly.
Correct.
That's the first time today. Good work, me. Right, Councillor Jays.
Just like to come back quick, thank you. I wasn't just referring to parish councils. Obviously, in recommendation 3, it says or other appropriate local organisations. And on recommendation 5 about going out to tender, I think we need to make sure we have the right sort of opening times for our seafront and waterside locations, and perhaps if officers could discuss with the chair and vice chair any movements on opening times before we go out to tender. I think that would be really useful.
So we're just going to come back to your recommendation in a moment. Looking at the time, members, I'm going to ask that we extend standing orders this evening. It's not something that I usually support, but we've had 2 really important items, lots of really important items to discuss, but 2 that we knew were going to need discussion, lots of. So I'd like to extend standing orders. All agreed? Thank you. You were talking about a recommendation to install baby changing facilities, being mindful, of course, that obviously recommendation 6 on this report said recommendations not approved and savings not achieved. Committee are asked to identify where these savings could be made within the scope of the committee. I would imagine that if we're then supporting more costs to this group of recommendations, that we would probably need to identify where we feel that money is going to come from to support those extra facilities in those toilets. And I say that with a heavy heart because I actually think it's a fairly good idea. I just question where the funding is going to come from for that, Councillor Jays.
UK Share Prosperity Fund.
Hasn't that all been allocated? I don't know.
Not in April. There'll be another lot.
Have we had definite confirmation that that's coming forward?
Not as UK Share, sorry, through you, Chair, not as UK Share Prosperity Fund. There are additional funds that are coming in that could be utilised by members for public convenience upgrades. I'm really sorry, in the room we don't know the answer in terms of what ones do or don't have baby changing facilities. All I would suggest is that there is some sort of caveat where it allows. Obviously, if it's impossible because of the size and making sure that wheelchair access, etc., it's as long as there's that caveat, then I have no issue with that proposal.
The issue that I've got, if we're making proposals where we don't know where the budget is coming from for it, is this not better taken at a meeting where we can actually say yes or no? Because as a committee, we could make lots of recommendations about stuff we'd love to see, but if there's no budget for it, none of these are going to come true. So I think we have to be realistic. Is this the right place for it? Is that funding going to be brought to a different committee? Is that then a recommendation that can go to that committee that is actually deciding on the allocation of where that money goes and to what funding that's going to support? These are just questions. I don't know the answer, Councillor Jays. So.
Point of order, Madam Chair. We seem to be going into discussion about an amendment to a recommendation when I don't think we've actually seconded it. So we. Thank
you very much, Councillor Bowen. I completely agree. Let's start with that. That's the basics, isn't it? Do we have a second? We do have a seconder. Right. So, Councillor Jays.
Can we refer this matter to PNR? Perhaps I'll put it in the capital budget, especially as our next item mentions returning money to the capital budget.
Are you happy with that as an approach? I'm happy with that as an approach. Councillor Stevens, you've seconded. Just checking. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'm not happy with that approach at all, because frankly, that's hey, here's a committee, we'll make a decision, and we'll just shove it over there for you to look at. No, that is not an appropriate way to do it. If this committee is going to be looking at something, then this committee should be looking how it's going to be paid for and covered. I have a concern with this proposal, and it was mentioned. It's not quite straightforward, because where appropriate, but you're going to have to potentially install baby change facilities twice, male and female. or you're going to put it in the disabled toilets. You look at there are other costs associated to this, which is going to put it up. Because if you can't put it baby change in a male change or toilet facility, because certain females won't want to go in there, and why should they? And vice versa. So you're looking at double the cost. It's not as straightforward, and space permitting as well. In theory, a good idea. In practical terms and cost terms, I think that it needs a lot more thought. But no, it should not be referred to P&R. Thank you.
So I think you're right, it does need more investigation. Sorry, Councillor Perkins?
Yeah, so this kind of feels like the paperless meetings, let's buy some chairs situation, because we're literally talking about a really difficult decision to take some services away for some really vulnerable people potentially. I appreciate that we've had a lot of research into making that impact as small as possible, but we can't be sitting here in a committee saying we're going to close some disabled facilities whilst also agreeing to potentially spend a lot of money on adaptations. I think you need to do that in the round. If there was to be a whole discussion about what facilities we provide and how we can where the money is going to come from for a whole suite of upgrades. I think that's the right way of doing it. I don't think we can just make that a decision on the hoof, because we're talking about reducing services to save money, and then on the same flip, talking about spending more money. It just doesn't really make any sense to me.
Martin?
Yeah, I mean, clearly you guys need to vote on a proposal that's been seconded on that. I guess all I would say is anything that's unfunded generally is taken away, investigated and brought back. So however you want to do that, that would generally be the approach that we would take on that.
So I think we just need to, there's a proposer, there's a seconder, we need to vote on it, and then if potentially, whichever way it goes, we can potentially look at it.
Can you reiterate what the actual amendment is, please?
Councillor Jones?
Proposed to install baby changing in all toilet sites that remain open as appropriate, space allowing, etc., etc.
Etc., etc. I'm not sure if that's quite the word we want, but there we go. So
sorry, Chair, but that's not quite clear enough, because we were just talking about referring to P&R. So is that not included in this?
Proposed referring to P&R to investigate costs for installation of baby changing in all toilet sites that remain open that are appropriate, space allowing, etc.
Okay. Right, so can we have a vote of those in favour of the proposal that's on the table at the moment, please? We've got 2 in favour, 3 in favour, against. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 against, abstentions. 1, 2, 3, 4 abstentions. That has failed. Let's get back to the substantive then. It has, but it doesn't mean it can't come back in a different guise another time, can it? Right, so I've got Councillor Miller, you've been waiting a long time to speak. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the forum, a big factor for me is the regular ASB and reported poor conditions, so I can see why there is a move to close them. But at the same time, I do agree with Councillor Perkin and recognise how important accessible toilets are for many residents, alongside visitors and businesses. While the nearby library and business facilities are in better condition and more popular, ultimately, this vote is still to remove a public facility that is possibly going to impact members of the community. It's a difficult decision where we must ultimately balance value for residents alongside practicality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Would you like to come back on that? I'm going to go to the ward councillors, if not. No? Okay, Councillor Winkless, would you like to start?
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on this issue late in the evening as the visiting ward councillor. So far tonight, I've heard nothing from this committee discussing the future of the Milton Regis toilets. I have the survey in front of me. 133 people apparently responded to the consultation with the Milton Regis toilets. I've added up the figures for the forum and the high street. I think it's 1,110. Now, those two toilets, in my view, are very close. You've got the High Street library car park ones, and you've got the Forum ones. Now, Milton High Street is a heritage area. Now, over the years in this chamber, I've constantly heard people saying they want to improve the heritage areas, encourage people to come along. So I honestly feel that that the Milton Regis toilets are basically being totally looked at for closure. Also, there's the issue with the court hall in the summer when they open up the staff there. That's open from April to September. They have no toilet facilities to go to when they close. Now, the other question, if I may ask, how many businesses in Milton High Street have agreed to basically use their facilities? The Three Hats pub, I understand, I may be wrong, I don't think they've agreed people to go in there.
Would you like to ask that question and then finish off?
Sorry?
I'm happy for you to ask the question of the officer to inform the rest of what you're going to say. Would you like to ask?
Yeah, ask the officer, thank you.
Initially, when contacted businesses to find out if they would be interested in the scheme, we did get some interest from the Three Hats pub. There would need to be further discussions if it was supposed to be a part of a community toilet scheme, but also there is a organisation who is interested in taking on the Milton Regis public toilets, and if those were successful, they may be able to keep the toilets open pending further investigation as well. But based on the number of people who've ever used the Milton Regis and the number of people who actually used the other toilets that were asked of the members of the public, Milton Regis had one of the lowest numbers of visitors from Swale residents or outside of the borough. Unfortunately, even though there are some people who use the Milton Regis toilets, it is quite inefficient in terms of actually keeping it open because of the costs involved compared to running some of the other toilets, which is one of the reasons why it was recommended for closure.
Rather, Chair, if I'm allowed to say a bit more, if I've read correctly, if it's agreed to keep the Forum and the library ones open, it's going to cost more, if I've read correctly, to renovate the Forum ones than the Milton High Street ones. If I'm correct, that doesn't seem to make common sense to me. No disrespect to any officers on the financial situation on that. And just one other quick question. If it's agreed tonight at this committee that Milton High Street toilet's closed, we've got a building in the centre of the heritage area, what's going to happen to that building? Well, I think there's been some questions asked.
So just to ask officers, I was under the impression that Milton Toilets didn't belong to Swale, it's a private building, and that we actually have a contract on that building. Can you just confirm whether that's the case or not? So on that basis, I'd imagine it would go back to the landowner to decide what they want to do with their own building. Councillor Winkler.
Okay, as I say, but I've made my point, and thank you very much.
Yes, you did, and thank you for coming along to advocate for your residents this evening. Councillor Lundy.
Thank you, Chair. So, a lot of what I was going to bring up has already been raised by Councillor Jays and Councillor Perkin, particularly Councillor Perkins' point about access for people with long-term health conditions, because that does make leaving the house so much harder for people if they are worried about where they're going to go to the toilet, or if they're even going to be able to make it to one. It's not very dignified for people. But one of my main issues as ward councillor is the consultation itself. So question number 2 is, which, if any, of the following public toilets do you use regularly? Well, by the time this consultation went out to the public, the White House toilets had been shut for months. So I don't know how anyone is supposed to respond to that like that. That doesn't seem like a logical way of asking that question. And it feels as though that's just a really easy way for the council to say, oh, this toilet's got subsidence issues, but but it's okay because we can get that closed, because that would have skewed the results. Because people can't use the toilets at the moment.
Can I come back on that question quickly, if that's okay? I agree that actually when the consultation was first released, there was a change made to the consultation, because you are right in the fact that some people were filling in the consultation, getting to that question, not being able to fill that question in, and then not being able to progress with the consultation. That is, Swale's got a bit of work coming up on consultations that is going to be raised, because we had to go back and change that so you could leave questions out of the consultation. So obviously I know you're trying to make a separate point, but it's worth the transparency of saying that actually I don't agree with consultations that you can only get to a certain point, and if you don't answer the whole consultation, it's irrelevant. It isn't the same. If you filled one in paper, you could fill in whatever questions you liked, however you liked. So I agree with you on that point, Councillor Lundy.
Moreover, during the winter, having that toilet shut, I mean, I don't agree with closing it anyway, because my residents in Minster have contacted me saying that they don't think it should be closed, saying that it is used by people who walk their dogs, cycling, taxi drivers as well would have used it when it was open. But during the summer, that's a hotspot of tourism. Lots more people go there. So actually, the 3 toilets that you've got further up the road, just by the Little Oyster car park, they're inundated during the summer, and people don't just use that part of the beach. It's the whole way along the beach that gets used, and people that are using the shingle bank, or people that are just out for a walk. It's very short-sighted. I get that it's expensive, and I do accept the financial constraints that the council are under, but this is about making sure that people have got somewhere to go to the toilet, and that feels quite important, especially during summer months when tourism is up. But as I say, I totally reiterate the points that Councillor Jace and Councillor Perkins have made throughout the debate, so thank you.
Would anyone like to come back on that, Martin?
Absolutely. Given that you raised the, just for clarification, the online survey for the first week that it was open for over 8 weeks. Had that as a compulsory question. As soon as that was reported, we took the compulsory element off, and the remainder of the consultation period allowed people to bypass that. I can absolutely assure you, Councillor Nundy, that the decision to put, or the recommendation to put White House into that, wasn't based upon that one question 2 being answered. When you look at the public convenience profiles, the White House low usage, poor condition with subsidence issues that's been recommended, high costs of operation. That's why it's made it into the list, not based upon the fact that somebody couldn't answer a question to say they'd used it regularly. You know, there was a whole host of, this is by far and away the most detailed review I've seen in the nine and a half years that I've been at Swale. The data in front of you in the business case, in the profiling, in the clarifications, has led to these recommendations rather than any one thing. So that's all I would say to respond to that.
Okay, so we've had general discussion, we've had board councillors. There is a blue paper that's been put before members. So the opportunity is there to go offline and discuss elements of the blue paper if members wish to do that. Can you indicate now if you would like to do that? No, so you're happy to go to the vote without discussion of blue paper?
Chair, can I get a recorded vote, please? I think I've got 2 supporters to that.
Yes, so we will not be looking at the blue paper. Thank you for your comment, Councillor Jays. Yes, you've got your 2 supporters, so we can do a recorded vote. Councillor Perkin.
I wondered if I could do a cheeky extra recommendation. I appreciate it's a bit of a liberty. I wondered if we could just put in that we write to the government to say, please, can you fund us to put toilets in? Like, it's such a basic human right, and I don't understand why it's not statutory at all.
New recommendation 7 is to write to government officer or government secretary of state. As a committee. Oh, I am more than happy to do that. Obviously, you have to tell me to do it, but I'm more than happy to do it on your behalf, of course. So, right to the Secretary of State as a committee to ask for public conveniences to be funded on a national level, as opposed to it going down to individual councils to fund it out of council tax. Is that okay with the wording?
So no, I think the recommendation is to write to the Secretary of State to advocate for public conveniences being a statutory obligation for local government.
Oh. Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder. All in favour? So that's unanimous. Lovely, thank you very much. So that's the recommendation 7. Right, let's move back to the substantive. Looking at the time, members, I don't want to force your arm, but I'm happy to move to the vote and take all recommendations in one vote, unless anybody has any issues. Councillor Hunt.
Chair, I assume you're going to do 1 to 5 and 7, because 6 will only be if it doesn't get approved.
I'm happy to do either, because obviously number 6 becomes null and void based on the rest of the recommendations. But what would you?
So I would do 1 to 5 and 7 first,
and then do number 6. I think right. So let's look at 1 to 7 first. So can we have a proposer and a seconder for recommendations 1 to 7? Councillor Harrison, can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Gibson. All in favour? Oh no, we're doing a recorded vote, to apologise. So, Councillor Cheeseman.
4.
Councillor Gibson.
4.
Councillor Hunt.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Jace.
Against.
Councillor Marchington. Councillor Perkin.
Against.
Councillor Miller.
Abstain.
Councillor Mishuk.
Against.
Councillor Bowen.
With a heavy heart, 4.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Stevens. Paul Stevens, apology.
4.
Councillor Sarah Stevens.
Against.
Councillor Thompson.
Against.
And I am voting for. So that passes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against and 1 abstention, I think is the correct word. Okay, so we'll not worry about recommendation 6 then?
Surely that would fall, Chair.
Write that out.
So if we, yeah, I agree.
To be fair, I think because it says should the recommendations not be approved, I think it just falls.
So we can just
Everyone's
move on
happy
then.
with that?
Well done. And I know that wasn't an easy conversation to have, members. Looking at the time, I'm going to have to extend standing orders again to just make sure we can finish off the last item for Barton's Point. Can I have agreement that we can extend just to get this last item done? Agreed. Right. So let's move on to item 12. Barton's Point, considering future options for management of biodiversity. Can I have an officer introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Me again, but I have Graham with me for lots of technical questions if you have those. This report gives the most recent update on the plans for improvements at Barton's Point. Following the expressions of interest process that we undertook and the subsequent planning considerations after we had chosen a preferred operator, a full ecological report was undertaken over a year-long period. As updated at one of the most recent Sheppey area committees, the report describes the unique ecosystem of the site and its importance as a biodiversity asset. The report severely inhibits any major improvements that would increase footfall at the location, and as a result, we believe the council needs to reconsider its approach to the management of the site. That was approved as the original decision was taken by Economy and Property. That was approved by the last Economy and Property Committee. They retracted the decision to put it out to the operator and referred it to this committee for wider discussion, given that the ecological report really sits with this committee. It highlights the report highlights some key considerations for members in making decisions on next steps. I thoroughly do not expect this committee tonight to decide on this is the way forward for Barton's Point, but I do think you need to consider some of the elements within the report. Some of those decisions may impact other users, and there's a recommendation to liaise with one of them. With your grace, I might actually like to amend that myself, given that I wrote it embarrassingly, just to say to all users of the site, rather than singling out the Sea Cadets to write to in terms of the ecology report. As the decisions may cross over with the Economy and Property, they asked for an update at their January meeting, depending upon what you discuss. And I'm sure there may well need to be discussions within the committee period. Whilst on the topic of Barton's Point, officers have previously been tasked with investigating a project to connect the site to mains drainage. We heard it mentioned earlier. As explained in the report, the findings of that are that it would be problematic and that the money set aside wouldn't be enough to deliver that. The main reason being, and actually it would add or at least not save any revenue funding on an ongoing basis. Basically, the site is below the mains drain in the main road, and so you'd need a pumped solution to be able to get it, and the costs of running that will probably run to the same level that the emptying of the cesspit is. So we are actually asking for a recommendation here to recommend to Policy and Resources Committee to remove that mains drainage project from the capital programme to continue with the cesspit emptying that we have at the moment. Happy to take any questions.
So before we start the discussion, members, the first recommendation, I would like to propose that there is a very small working group that is set up to actually do recommendation 1 justice. I also believe that that working group needs to hear from the users of Barton's Point. They're not just people that have been on that site for 5 minutes. They are long-term users. They are the Sea Cadets that have given so much to the community, and the Model Railway too. And they really need to be involved. We should at least be hearing from them before we make, in my opinion, consideration around. It won't affect the whole conversation, of course not, but it would give members more. They've got the ecology report, of course they've got the report in front of them, but I think it will affect them in such a greater amount that I would like to propose a very short task and finish group where we can actually, after writing out to those groups, actually get a response from those groups to make sure that members are making an informed decision around how Barton's Point goes forward. So I would like to propose the recommendation that members to discuss the consideration and give a steer on what options they want Office to pursue is replaced with members to form a working group to give a steer on what options they want officers to pursue and then set a date for a start and a finish for that group. So it's not going on and on, but we are giving that full consideration. I'm happy to propose. Would anybody like to second that option? Councillor Jays, was the wording okay? Or did it need to be better wording? Okay, so can I get all in favour? Put your hands up if you're in favour of that particular change to the recommendation. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's that recommendation changed and done. Moving on to discussion. How do you want to change recommendation 3? Because I think that's a bit of a no-brainer, the discussion of changing that.
If we can just say to write to the key users of Barton Point, informing them of the ecology report.
Can we have a proposer? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Gibson. All in favour of that change for that recommendation? Yep, that's unanimous. So we're left with discussion really around the recommendation 2. Would anybody like to make any comment or question? Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. So where did this money come from? This was money allocated under the Sheppey Improvement Fund. This was from the sale of some land. One of the previous leaders, probably Honourable Alderman Roger Truelove, set up the Sheppey Improvement Fund. This helped fund the War Memorial as well as this site and some other projects. There are probably not a lot of members on this committee or on PNR that were here when that was set up, but if we are going to withdraw this money from this project, it should go back into the Sheppey Improvement Fund pot and be drawn down for other decent local projects. Obviously, we're 3.5 years on from the original expression of interest, and there is some things I'd like to clarify in the report. 2.15. I agree we need high quality offering. The cafe aren't working well as it says in the report. They're hardly ever open, even on a nice hot sunny day. They're all closed by 4 o'clock most of the time, and they run out most of their stock. So they're not doing a very good offering and not giving Swarborough Council a good name. 2.16 it says about camping. This is still happening, just people don't pay and it's not formalised. And it says that it says that kayaking and other water sports have stopped since we've had a new CAF operator. That's incorrect. The CAF was operating in August, paddleboards and kayaks. And I'll have a picture of their price list if anyone needs it. 218, we must have found the most expensive contractors for this project. The Sea Cadets had 3 separate quotes for a report for joining to the mains, and suddenly, obviously, that someone sees the council's name and it triples. 2.19, the pirate event's still happening. There was at least 2 pirate events down there this year. And in 220, it mentions about other site users. Our ground maintenance for these 2 locations cost us more than we are getting from these 2 people we've got leases with. We should at least wipe our face on it, or they should cut their own grass in this area. We haven't met our ground maintenance savings targets. I've mentioned this numerous times, and we've just said we can't fund toilets. There is ways to save money. People just need to listen. And a councillor at the area committee made a very good point about Sea Cadets and how we shouldn't interfere with their lake access, as they do great community service and make good, useful members of society. So I'm against removing the capital budget, as we have no costs in front of us and no estimates in front of us.
Thank you. Would anybody like to come back?
You always talk so quick, Councillor Jays, but I hope I get it. If I miss any, I'm absolutely happy for you to come back. Funding from the Sheppey Improvement Fund, you're correct, it was allocated from that. That's long since gone as a programme. It was something I would have to take back normally when funds are unspent and they go back into the general reserve or the capital reserve for councillors to then to decide on how they're redistributed. So I would imagine that will be the same. absolutely welcome any feedback on any of the concessions that we have operating on our open spaces. So thank you for that. Camping's still happening. We have obviously seen examples of that, and we have gone to sent enforcement officers and others to remind them that this case can't be there all the time. In terms of the Sea Cadets, listen, every time a project is started, we often get quotes. Then you develop the wider project and specification, and it's not often how the original ballpark quotes come in. All I can say is we used the expertise of a drainage engineer who came up with the system, and then when we tested it with the market, that's what told us it was unaffordable. I've talked about in the report, do we need to approach the other users of the groups and change their arrangements? So again, that's something absolutely that the Task and Finish group can look at. And I completely agree with the Sea Cadets. I hope that came across in my report that their activity has been happening throughout the whole of the ecology survey process, and we still have the unique system there. So at the moment, my view is that existing use has not impacted the ecology so far, so why should it in the future? So I hope that came across in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Every time we set up a working group, you're taking officers away from the day job, and then you're moaning that you ain't got a report in front of you about the day job. And I think, you need to bear this in mind. This would probably be, during my time, this would be the 4th Barton's Point working group. I would suggest that you get the minutes from the last lot and just have a read of them, because there won't be anything new. Now, as a heathen, when I read this, I thought, okay, so we can't have any decent leisure there because of the invertebrates. Do you know, as an aside, because it was in this chamber, we were told, no, you can't have a tunnel from the mainland because it would cause too much disturbance to the crustaceans. And I said at the time, this is how long ago it was, I said, and how much poll tax do these bloody crustaceans pay? If we are going to take too much notice of the crustaceans and the invertebrates and all the rest of it, then you're going to have to go down the eco side. And we could have some, okay, not as high level was the one as you come on the bridge. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Somebody will remember it. But, set up a few hides. And there are these companies that do this countrified stuff. And they are making a mint out there. Hearty. Yes, Hearty. Somebody remind me what it's called.
Elmley Bird Reserve, Councillor.
Elmley. They're making a mint out there with them hides and all the rest of it. Now, if we can't do any decent leisure for the majority of people to enjoy, then I think that that's the route that we'll end up going down. And there will be somebody who would love to run something there and give us money. And until you've decided what you want to do, or any ideas of what you want to do, there is no point setting hairs running. Having said that, we're in a public meeting. There's no point setting hairs running and saying to the engineers and the aeroplanes, oh, just letting you know that we're doing this. Because then it'd be, oh, what about us? And there's that constant reassurance. I think you need to look at the options of getting somebody in to run something. Other than that, it's just carry on as we are and just get a decent cafe person in there. Because one thing that our residents do like between Tesco's and the White House is a cafe.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I have deep sympathy for Councillor Jay's view that the money should be reused on the island, and I take Martin's point that that's not kind of technically possible with the system we use, but I think we should, if it's at all possible, attempt to ring fence that in some way. To take an unusual approach for me and a high-risk strategy given how late it is in the evening, I'm going to disagree with Councillor Harrison and speak in defence of invertebrates. But I think, much as I enjoyed using my Latin GCSE this afternoon reading this paper, it might be slightly more accessible for the general public and the groups we're sending it out to if we gave the several hundred invertebrates listed their common names alongside their Latin names, to make clear just the kind of scale of the level of ecological niche community that is here, and the huge variety of very important species that are on this site. I went down a bit of not a rabbit hole, I suppose, a beetle hole of Googling this afternoon, working out what it is. But lots of residents have got much more exciting lives than I do, and I'm not going to do that. So I think if we can provide that extra information, that would be helpful to them, just to kind of give that clarity. But otherwise, happy to support the proposal. I think talking to the current users before we make any firm decisions is probably helpful. Thank you.
Just to confirm that I fully support your excitement over the report, and yes, it is on one side of things, shame that initial plans didn't work out at Barton's Point, but there are pluses and minuses to everything. Councillor Thompson.
No, I haven't had a chance to have a good look at it, but I've just been grazing through it, and it's great to see such a great diverse spot. And I agree that if we communicate with the Sea Cadets, if things maybe moves, certain things are moved, certain things might not be beneficial, looking at the fires and things, but the events don't seem to have had a massive impact. Yeah, I think working in conjunction maybe with someone like Kent Wildlife Trust or something like that, or OSPB, the fact that it's got such a diversity, from mammals all the way through, rare ones all the way through, is quite exciting, really. And I think there's plenty of characters who are way more into it than I am that would be quite excited to go and, look and understand without having an impact and actually improve it more, probably. So I think, yeah, it's quite exciting asset, really. And I'm sure with communication with some of the tenants, it worded the right way, I'm sure they'll understand that as well. But I think it's good.
Lovely, thank you. So the couple of questions that I had about the mains drainage project, removal of that idea, was around what we're actually going to be supporting Barton's Point with going forward then, because obviously if we're not putting the area onto mains drainage, that leaves cesspit. In the report, I think it was detailed at 11,000 a year for clearance of that. There was some hope that the removal of the capital funding might be reinvested into ways of making that process more streamlined, better value. I don't know how you'd put it. Have we actually got any details of that? Because if that capital money is going to be reinvested into that, then that will allow that money to go back onto Sheppey to make that a better process. And actually, I do believe that the cafe was fantastic idea to keep something there, because residents really did want something back there. But I follow Councillor Harrison's point that other areas are doing it exceptionally well, and we can look at our Medway counterparts, we can look at our Canterbury counterparts, as close as Maidstone, to look at how other people value their country parks. And I'm really hoping that this is the start of the process, that Barton's Point will finally be able to be recognised in its own right on the same level as Milton Country Park, because it deserves it, and it's a unique place, it's unique ecology, and so often on the island those unique elements of our island are just bypassed for something that's a different priority. This is our opportunity to prioritise this. It's a happy accident, I feel. Green flag, that's exactly the word I was going for. But is there anything you can tell us about that cesspit approach? Thank you.
There's a pun in that, but I'm not gonna do that because I have been talking a lot tonight. So in terms of the cesspit, it is an annual revenue cost that we're required to do that. That will continue clearly if you discontinue the capital project. What we put into that paragraph of the report was we could divert some of that capital funding to look at could we make that more efficient so that the operating costs drop. I apologise. I didn't want to kill off a proposal before it had taken off. I was just saying, so the committee is more than welcome to say we'd quite like to see that capital money spent on the site elsewhere, whether that be. Clearly, that is a decision for the wider council because capital receipts are under demand, whether it's for a new swimming pool, whether it's for housing, whether it's for whatever. So all I'm saying is, councillors, you can make a recommendation, but clearly that needs to be discussed in the round. Did I answer your question about cesspit, Dolly? Sorry.
I think that answers it more than I've answered it, to be honest with you. Councillor, I know you've got your hand up. Unfortunately, as a visiting ward councillor, you wanted to speak on the toilet and the free parking. So really we're talking to committee members at the moment. So maybe you want to whisper it to the committee members standing next to you and they can raise your point for you. Right. Has anybody else got anything that they would like to... Councillor Bone?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure you're entirely right as a visiting member if it's actually attended the meeting to be able to actually have his say, but that's your call. I'm wondering on this, and I agree with Councillor Harrison about working groups in terms, but they need to have a purpose and a focus and actually get the job done. And provided that this group can do it. But I was also wondering, would it potentially save time and rather than having a group of people of talking to themselves and going around in circles? You say about writing to the Sea Cadets as well. Could we actually request other interested parties? So, for example, the Sea Cadets or Kent Wildlife, people who have also good expertise in this field, no pun intended there, to actually join the working group, to advise the working group on what the possibilities could be, rather than talking amongst ourselves and then saying, we'll go and talk to the Kent Wildlife Trust, and then we'll go and talk to the cadets. Could we actually bring them in and be part of that, which enrich the actual working group? I'm not sure about recommendation 2 at this point. I think that's something which also, again, the working group could look at. Throw it all in the mix for the working group to look at this entire subject and come up with something for us to bring back. And just for clarification, on the revised third bullet point, you said, was it in users, if memory serves? Again, that comes back to my point about, are there other interested parties? So should we be sending, if we're going to potentially invite them, Kent Wildlife? Does Sheerness Town Council cover Barton's Point? Excuse my ignorance there. Or is it covered by another parish council? Is there a parish council or town council?
It's covered by Minster. It's in Minster areas, but also I think if we're looking at somebody running the point, it would still go back to economy to go out for tender. So that's where we have to be careful about kind of inviting interested parties to working groups. If they're going to be part of the tender going forward, that might be a bit of an issue, maybe.
But on that third point, we need to send it to those groups as well. They may not be users, but they should be interested in the site, like you say, the parish council. That's it. That was just, I was thinking whether that could actually potentially save time and make it even richer as a result, rather than 5 or 6 of us talking about the same thing, because we're not actually experts in this at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bone. Martin?
I remember somebody advising me never make policy on the hoof. I can't remember who it was. It may have been someone in this room. But obviously the proposal is something new and not something I'd considered in the report, but I completely understand why. So actually, as the author of the report, I'm quite happy to say let's throw all of it into the consideration on that. In terms of could you invite external organisations, we absolutely could for advice in terms of that. So we have connections with those type of organisations already in terms of other sites that we operate. So it could be a hybrid version where we have a member-only discussion in the first meeting, then we say, let's invite an organisation to come and talk to us in the second meeting, etc., etc. So without designing the whole terms of reference tonight, because I've not thought about it.
Also,
how about I write some terms of reference and circulate it to those that are put forward for the group?
The other really main consideration is that this report stopped our plans for this area. So the report that we've got in front of us isn't a minor report. It isn't something that we can take under advice and not look at and deal with and consider. So I would imagine that the working group's main consideration here is getting to know that report, understanding the report and understanding the considerations. So I do take the point about absolutely, because I made it, having people's input, absolutely. But I think it's very important that we understand that a lot of this work is going to be dictated by the report. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come back to us. So if economy, and I don't think Ashley's online anymore, but if they could have found a way of pressing ahead with the original idea and getting around the report or doing something slightly different and still making all that investment they've already put into this work, they would have done. So I think we just have to be mindful that when we're doing this working group, the report is fairly hard-hitting from my reading of it, and it has got some quite rigorous constraints against what's going to happen at Barton's Point. So we just need to bear that in mind when we're looking at terms of reference and what we're managing our expectations of what that working group is going to achieve, if that makes sense, members. But that's good discussion. Sorry, Martin.
So in the efforts of time, I think we're going to vote on recommendation 1 as amended by yourself. Not recommendation 2, and I think recommendation 3 we can vote on as amended or proposed by me and in terms of that change. Does that make it clear for everybody? So 1 and 3 with 2 referred to the working group. And can I just clarify for the minutes, are we taking the same approach so that it's 1 rep from each party for the task and finish group?
Brilliant. I would absolutely recommend that. That's a good idea.
Can the group also decide whether they're going to have any independent members, or let the group decide on that, or put some thought into
I think that's probably terms of reference, isn't it, really? Right, okay, so let's need a proposer and a seconder for recommendations 1 and 3, please, as amended. Councillor Bone, Councillor Hunt, all in favour of those recommendations? And that's unanimous. Lovely, as amended. And then do we just let recommendation go? Recommendation 2 go. Lovely. Thank you very much, members. And as far as I can see,
do we not want to make change recommendation to what Councillor Bowen said, that it be referred to the working group, just so it's clear in the minutes, and doesn't just end up at P&R regardless?
Okay, let's do that again then, because clarity is always useful. So, Councillor Bowen, what would you like to add to the recommendation 1? Just to well, it needs to be added to recommendation 1.
Recommendation 2 to the working group.
Yes. So recommendation 2 is deferred literally to the working group. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Same proposers, same seconders. Everybody in favour of that?
Agreed.
Lovely. Just to be absolutely clear, well done, everybody. And I just want to thank members. I know it's been a long meeting, and we've done some very meaty work this evening. So thank you very much for your time. That's us done. Thank you. Meeting closed.